Welcome back to my channel. My name is Ray, and we are here to jump into episode 3 of season 3 of Interview with the Vampire, season 1 of the Vampire Lestat. You know, I was on AMC Plus the other day, and I was like looking up because I was trying to remember something that happened in season 2 of Interview with the Vampire, and I went to go look up an episode, and the first season was listed in the Interview with the Vampire listing as like a second season 1. Like, what was the point of splitting the show into 2 different shows if you're just going to list it in the same fucking listing? Anyway, I've had this discussion, and I know we've had it on my channel, and we've gone back and forth, and I still maintain that it would have been better if it was just titled either The Vampire Chronicles with a subtitle or Interview with the Vampire, because the whole Chronicles is just a bunch of fucking vampires telling their stories to somebody else. Like, you easily could have changed all of them into interviews. Listen, I know with the vampire is Louis, but I'm just saying that they're all, like, it's a bunch of fucking vampires telling their stories, okay? That's what the Vampire Chronicles are. It's just like a series of fucking interviews with a bunch of vampires, or the people who are surrounding the vampires, or who are about to become vampires. Anyway, we're gonna dead the noise, but goofy. Anyway, so we're here for episode 3. First 2 episodes of the season. I personally liked episode 1 more than episode 2, even though episode 2 was more straightforward and linear. I still had problems. I still had problems with the inverted focus on modern day versus the historical scenes and letting them breathe. I do think that the historical scenes were a little bit more of more theatrical because Lestat was trying to gain distance from them. But I still maintain that I don't know if that's the creative choice I would have made. You know, I understand what they are doing and the function of it in the season. I just don't know if I agree with that creative choice. Does that make sense? But, you know, we're here. We're here. So we're here for episode 3. I don't think I watched any kind of trailer or anything, like next time on. So, who knows? But, honestly, I don't really want to gab about it. I want to just watch the episode. It's actually really late for me, and I have a feeling that this episode is going to run long. These episodes have been running really long, and it's partially because the deeper I get into a show, the more I have to discuss, because I'm discussing everything that came before and how it ties into what's happening now. So whenever I watch a show, especially a long-running show, just expect that the first episodes are going to be short and the later episodes are going to be really long, because I'm just going to be talking about everything as it leads up to, you know, the current episode. So that's just how I am. If you've watched my videos for a long time, you know that I post really long videos, and the later in the season it gets, the longer the videos become. Every time. All right, let's not gab anymore. Let's just actually watch the episode. Let's go.
Citizenry of Canada.
All right, so we're in Canada.
And what the friends and family of Avery Olsen and Natalie Bokel-Hyde confirmed as a must-see when the two planned their honeymoon and waited for Avery's divorce to finalize.
I guess they about to die. Is this the opening of a Supernatural episode?
Budget and consummated their union in their home province. The marriage. Where are any of us, really?
Is that him? Oh, give me that. Hey,
Justin Bieber.
Not him kind of
I got 40 fucking
dissociating.
people here with their
buddy.
hands up their asses.
Did you misplace something there?
I'm done chasing you. Apps.
You assume death at decapitation. A study done in Budapest had 2 Class B vampires surviving separation for nearly 2 hours. A vampire of Lestat's breeding could last 4 to 5 times.
Stat has the herps.
Pause. Wait. Dr. Reid just dropping that? Oh, casually? Oh, There's a couple references he could be making there. Oh my God. Wait. Okay, so first of all, Class B vampires? What is that? Oh, is that something from the Talamasca show that I definitely did not watch? I told you guys I would be done with both of them before I started watching this, and I lied. I have not finished Mayfair Witches or started the Talamasca show. So maybe that's a reference to the Talamasca show, that they are classifying vampires. I guess by power levels. Are we power scaling? I mean, I always hate power scaling conversations when they take over storytelling discussion, but I enjoy power scaling as well because I think it's fun. I just hate when it's used as a tool for overriding narrative, but we're not here to talk about my feelings about power scaling. Is the Talamasca power scaling? Interesting. Is that what... Well, we don't know that Dr. Reid is working with the Talamasca. So maybe it's just his own experiments. Like, we know that he's kind of a mad doctor a little bit. But also the decapitation is a definite, like, that's got to be a reference. There's a couple of references, right? We could either be getting Frank and Claudia, which I have mixed emotions about Frank and Claudia, both in the books and in the show, which we can talk about later. So there could be a reference to Frank and Claudia, or it could be a reference to Akasha, because that's something that happens with Akasha. Let's just say that. I mean, you guys know that this is going to be a book spoiler review, so I guess I could just talk about it, but but it could be one of two references. But we're already only 3 minutes in, and I've already paused. Let's keep going.
Delivered unto the world, April 16th, 1950. Murdered and reborn July 18th, 2022 by the Gremlin Armand.
Gremlin Armand.
He led a brief, incidental life as a vampire. Incidental. Is that the right word?
I think brief is where we need to pause.
I gave him every reason to. I have regrets when it comes to Dan.
Stop. Sorry. No, you're not going to foreshadow Dan dying. I don't believe you. Sorry, Lestat. I actually don't believe that Dan is dying. Or at least not dying in the way that you keep... Because this is like the third time I feel like we have referenced the idea of Daniel dying, not making it out of the season or out of whatever coming conflict with Akasha we're going to have. And I don't believe you. Okay? First of all. Second of all, interesting. He definitely said he was a Taurus last episode. And I don't think April is Taurus. I'm not that up on my zodiac, but I don't think April is Taurus. July, though, because that's my birthday's in July. That's Cancer. So he died in the in July. Wait. I was about to say he died a couple days after my birthday. But actually, more salient, he died in July. The interview in Dubai was in June. That's very explicit. Like, we know exactly when the interview in Dubai took place because they opened the recordings with him saying the date, and then they gave us a paper with the exact date on when the interview ended, when he exposed Armand. And so that it took place in June for a couple of weeks. I don't remember the exact date, but it was definitely June. But if he died in July, that means that there's like a month in between when Armand was slammed into a wall and when Daniel was turned. What happened in that month? See, I've always thought that he didn't get turned in Dubai, but I couldn't rationalize why or how. Why would Armand wait? Because everything that they have been like talking about in terms of his turning has been like, oh, this was like a really traumatic thing. And so I could envision Armand turning him in the heat of the moment in a blind rage, and it being, I don't think I've talked about this yet in the video, but I talked about how a couple of different, it's not going to be like it is in the books, but if they're going to give him David's death, which David was non-consensually, forcibly turned by Lestat, right? So we've established in the last episode, we're not having David. We're cutting him out and giving his storylines to other people, primarily Daniel, right? So that means that his death, probably his violent, traumatic, horrifying death, is probably going to go to Daniel, where Lestat completely breaches trust with David and forcibly turns him in an echo of how Magnus forcibly changed Lestat. He was repeating a cycle with him. But instead, we took that death and we gave it to Daniel, and we made Armand the perpetrator of it. Arguably, one of Lestat's worst crimes, actually, in the books. They took it and gave it to Armand. I have mixed feelings about that. I have not talked about how I feel about the way that they have been redistributing Armand's book storylines. I have thoughts. Maybe I'll save it for after, where I can talk at length about Armand and how he's being used in the season so far. But if they give Daniel David's book plot, I just can only see it happening in Dubai like that, where he's full of rage, he loses his fucking mind, and he just attacks Daniel. I actually think it's more likely that he would just, in a blind rage, attack Daniel and accidentally almost kill him, and then wake up from that blind rage, realize what he's done, and then trying to save his life, tries to change him. And that would be a perfect echo to what happened with Ricardo in the books. Because essentially, now that wasn't Armand's fault at all. I don't hold Armand responsible for what happened with Ricardo. But essentially, it's similar in that he couldn't control himself. He accidentally ate his best friend and killed him. And in complete and utter despair, tries to change him, and the changing doesn't work because Ricardo's already dead. It's like a perfect echo to Claudia from season 1, frantically trying to save what was his name? Charlie. Trying to save Charlie after she accidentally killed him. Which we all know that Claudia and Armand are often paralleled and foiled. But that would be a perfect way to, echo that, as well as echo Ricardo's death, and really start to dig into Armand's trauma about turning vampires. But if they put a month in between Dubai and his turning, then what would be the impetus for turning Daniel? Because if it's not going to be blind rage at that point, unless something else happened a month later that causes him to flip out on Daniel. Now I'm like, well, what the hell happened? What the hell happened? Oh, man.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
He's here.
Oh, they're not killing Daniel, by the way. I think it's actually probably a reference to body swapping. I think they're going to body swap him, y'all. And I think they're going to kill his body.
Okay. Is that on your lip, Yada?
Okay, we're gonna be using a new camera. Is my doc your eulogy?
Did you promise him?
I don't do promises.
I've had 40 shows in 43 fucking nights. Nobody gives a fuck about what I was before. No one cares.
No one seems to give a shit
I
about
mean,
you
it's a
now,
documentary.
flatlining
Yeah.
1,000
Also-
capacity venues.
Let's take a walk.
You're confused about the pursuit, then. It is not about asses on seats or streams on Pandora. It
I'm
is
sorry.
about-
Did he just say Pandora? I have not thought about Pandora in so fucking long. Does that streaming site still exist? It must. Pandora? That's crazy. That's so dated. He's always so close. He can put TikTok in his song lyrics, but he's still talking about Pandora. Funny. Maybe they didn't have the rights to say Spotify. What's next? iTunes? Come on, man.
Pure expression. Let
me see.
I have had 40 shows in 43 fucking nights.
This is too
No
early.
one cares.
Oh, no, this is performative. That's some fake shit. That's some fake shit. Yeah, that's some fake shit. We're too early in the interview for actual real discussion.
I'm the vampire Louis de Pointe-Lac. I'm done by your relentless questionings, Mr. Malloy.
Not this manic laugh. Okay. Switch to Louis. Before we get into this, interesting. I was talking about this in one of my previous reactions that it was almost easier for Daniel because Louis wanted to know the truth about his life. He was also seeking the truth about his life, and he was doing everything he possibly could to get at it, right? And it was Armand who was trying to obfuscate it because for his own agenda, obviously. But because of that, Daniel actually didn't have to try that hard. He only had to try hard to get Louis to face his own truth. But because Louis was along with him, it was much easier. Lestat does not want to face his truth. And also, we don't even, like, this whole documentary just feels like performative itself. Like, he's just being petty. And like Louis said in the last episode, he's just hiring his biographer because he's pissed about the book. And not because he authentically, at least not with the documentary, authentically wants to tell his story in that documentary form. That feels like part of his vanity rock persona. Now, the songs, which is where I think Daniel should focus his discussion of the songs and what their meanings are. The songs do feel a bit more personal. Maybe not, I don't know, maybe Longface, maybe there's some hidden meaning behind Longface and Black Licorice, but I still think that pursuing the songs and the lyrics and understanding the meaning behind his actual art is a far more fruitful avenue to question, But again, he's going to be struggling because Lestat actually does not want to face his truth at all. At least not right now. That may change. Obviously, that's changing as the season goes on. And in fact, I think it started to change when he had his breakdown on stage in episode 1. But I don't know if he wants to face his truth with Daniel. Because Daniel and him, even though I think that they are chummy right now, they don't have the kind of close history that he and Louis had from, the 70s on through, right? Like, it was different. It was different because they had history, shared trauma from being under, Armand's thumb, It's different. Okay. We're about to do a run-up on Bruce.
Hello. Making a brief call to share an important message with you.
You got the wrong ad.
Okay, yeah, he just had to read his mind. I was like, how would he talk? He doesn't have any lungs anymore, but he can think it, so. Ooh, he's using the cloud gift. He couldn't do that in season 1 and 2.
I'm looking for
The great conversion.
What happened at age 9?
I was taken to see witches being burned at a stake.
Oh yeah, his witch trauma.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Ceremony, said the torch-bearing priests.
Okay.
You remember their names?
Twins.
Teenage girls with the resonant voices of men, screaming and thrashing for hours till their jawbones fell and the devil could sing no more.
And you were not.
Peace off!
This is Nikki, who you sing about in your song, Why Do I Have to Feel?
Nicolas de l'Enfant.
What is she?
First love.
Why is she feeling up his doppelganger while looking him dead in the eye? What are we doing? What are we doing?
Tell me to piss off again! I finished.
Ooh, not her pulling out the shotty. Well, I guess it's more of a pistol. But it looks like a shotty, like a sawed-off.
Nicolas de l'Enfant.
Lestat. You know what's Lioncourt, eh?
Yeah, right?
Look at that.
Agreed.
What are you doing in Paris?
This rom-com music is cute.
8-12. Impossible. And the bribes to keep me out of the National Guard.
Oh, were they recruiting or not recruiting, but drafting?
Liberty, equality, fraternity.
Yep. Be
Pity
right
is true.
before. Everybody about to get the chop.
You play beautifully.
Cap.
What did he really say?
Yeah. What did he really say, sir?
He said help him to be a man.
Okay.
But he said it without the stammer.
Are you gonna teach me to be a man? The stand of
Not the smash cut to them fucking.
Where do you think it goes?
That would have worked
The
on
old
me.
trope.
Wait. Licky kind of had a little riz there. Wait.
Some tropes of tortured and forbidden love, blah blah blah, bipolar boyfriend, blah blah. Fast forward.
Not bipolar boyfriend, blah blah.
Stop, vape, check your phone, press play. Okay, chamber pot zeggen, no, it's theater, a job I got through Nikki who worked in the pit there, so.
Go pull up the
Hey,
song
Renault's
for
Theater.
him, Why Do I Have
Is she
to
going
Feel?
out there?
Oh, I love
So,
that song.
the
To fuck
stuttering,
this
you
man?
just bullied it out of yourself.
Yeah, Nikki got me the job that cured my affliction. It was first love, not a great love. Thank you.
Oh, sir. Be serious. Not a great
Yourself in
love,
the ground
honey.
for a century
Right?
over
I was about to
the
say, you
club.
buried yourself in the
Only
ground
thing you
over
carry
it.
with you to New Orleans is a music box reminder of a not great love.
I carried the box because I destroyed him down.
Thing about this.
Quite on set.
What the fuck is going on? What? Why? Why are we doing what? Why is she carrying on? Why is she caterwauling?
So,
What is
you perform
happening?
a song every night by your abuser. Biggest fan.
Abuser.
Go pull up the song. For him.
Liberator, emancipator.
You really caught my eye. I think you're something special, babe.
Not to spin a rock ballad. He does look great though. Oh no.
I got a battle.
This is like a Lonely Island video or something.
You're so perfect in that raging light. I ask for it. I can tell you
It's actually really
everything
disturbing.
I'm not. You're my brave little wolf killer.
Oh no. Not them. Oh no. Not him smiling. Ugh. That was gross, actually. That was so gross. Because it's obviously from the POV of Magnus. So Magnus being like, oh no, this is our romance song. And he's smiling at the end of it. Oh, honey. That's terrible. That's really dark. That's so dark.
I understood my maker. If I had seen 19 straight performances of my Lilio, I would have abandoned all decorum, too.
Abandoned decorum. He made you a... In my book. He confronted you on the street, abducted...
Pause before we get to Armand, because he brings up Armand to unsettle Dan, because Dan is clearly still struggling with his transformational trauma. Whatever that trauma looks like for him. Sorry, this is a lot of unfortunate pauses I'm doing. Oh, Gabby. What are they doing with her? I don't know. I mean, I know what they're doing with her character. I can see what she was doing there. She's mad because last episode, Lestat set a boundary with her about not having sex. And, of course, immediately after that, she crossed the boundary by having vampire sex with her, which is drinking his blood, right? It's basically vampire sex. But she also is still mad about him setting a boundary with her and is pushing him here in this episode by, like, having crazy, loud sex with the doppelganger here and trying to get a reaction out of him, which, you know, he is upset about it, but he's not ready to confront why he's upset about it in truth. Like, honestly, I don't know when he will be. By the end of the season, I hope. I don't know. Oh. I hate this UI, y'all.
Song. Exactly. Very rock and roll. Still, it must have been hard keeping that from Nikki. Armand got Coven, and yet you hid your vampirism from him, that? Question mark.
Okay, interesting.
You're safe.
They're saying that scene happened as Armand narrated. Okay.
Delirium took you.
Are they saying that Gabby wasn't there for that? Interesting.
Company.
Our favorite game. You and I.
Right? Like, not
I
the
believe you.
gaslighting.
Got out of the window! As though nothing unnatural happened!
You returned, wearing silk breeches.
I lived my life!
It's like,
How?
what?
What?
She followed me to Paris. To out of your book. My love was a small box that I kept them in.
Not you trying to put that on Louis, sir. Just last episode, you told Gabriella that you didn't tell him shit. That, in fact, not only did you not tell him shit, you outright lied to Louis and told him that your mom was dead of consumption. I remember that because I just edited the last episode. So what are we saying here, sir? Don't put that on Louis. And then using Claudia's words to try and discredit Claudia's words there. Because that's not something that Louis said. That's something that Claudia said to Louis.
No room for the many hours I talked to her, I guess.
And where is she now?
Interesting that Armand never said. Well, no, it's not interesting. He hates her ass, so he wouldn't bring her up.
Right here.
You cannot do it. You mustn't do it.
I hate her ass, but I agree. Not a good idea. But we all know he's gonna do it, so.
I know I leave him to this madness.
You have used up your affection for him.
Anytime you wish.
And have your cumbersome words in my mouth again? No, thank you.
All right, we're finally seeing the balcony scene, y'all. And there's Gabby.
Blood drinkers in Italy.
Excuse me.
Okay.
There are covens like this one in Roma, Venezia, Salerno.
Does Nicola know about us?
Us. What is us?
Do you think you're the only one in the company he drinks from?
Do you think I am the only one with disdain for his fledgling?
What can I say? You're the active manager. Manage.
You're his maker. Make him.
Oh, this petty shit. There's a lot, actually.
My maker is dead. I've told you that already.
Just check.
You'll find his way.
No, he won't.
I believe you. I love you, Lestat.
Yep. Out of nowhere.
There's not room enough in this box for your desperation.
Pause. Hold on. First of all, okay, interesting. So we're obviously after everything that happens, or presumably we're after, let's say the ball scenes. And we've already started the Théâtre de Vampire. It's already been running for a while, for a brief time. So that all is true from Armand's retelling, that actually they started the theater together and it was running for a while, and Lestat was even an actor on the stage and everything, playing Death. But he didn't like Armand's writing for the Death character. Even though the no pain speech is fucking primo. I'm sorry, Lestat, you're wrong, because that speech is actually really good. If it's the same or similar to the one in modern day, it's very evocative. Interesting. I'm gonna be honest. That felt like a fake scene. Something about that felt really fake, and I kind of want to watch it again. I also want to catch, because they brought up Marius, and I kind of want to watch it again. Hold on. Let me go back. I want to watch it again. I want to watch this whole thing again. Sorry, guys.
No, thank you.
Okay. This feels real. This feels like real dialogue.
They're blood drinkers in Italy.
Okay, Italy.
Excuse me.
There are covens like this one in Roma, Venezia, Salerno.
Does Nicola know about us?
Us.
Pause. Before we go on, she just talked about Marius, which means that she should know, yes, there are covens in Rome. And, well, I guess, do we want to consider there being a coven in Venice if it was just Armand and Marius who were the vampires there? Is that considered a coven? But I have gone back and rewatched season 2, by the way, and paused on a bunch of stuff. And the Talamasca considered that to be enough of a coven in Venice, by the way, because they have on some of the documents that they sent to Daniel, coven in Venice or whatever. So interesting. Or are we saying that there was actually a coven in Venice? But either way, Gabby should know this now because clearly he's talked about it to her. So why are you asking? Is she just being, annoying? You should know that, yes, there are covens in Venice and Rome. If he's talked about his past, and maybe he's only doling out some of his past. So maybe he talked about his maker, but not necessarily about the fullness of how and why his maker died and how he ended up. But how can he tell his story if he doesn't mention the fact that he was taken to Rome, to the coven in Rome? Interesting. Okay, let's keep going. The conversation feels a little weird, but maybe they're splitting up the information that Armand shared across a larger span of time. Maybe. And he's only doling out bits of it rather than sitting down and having a full exposition dump of his entire life like he had in the books.
What is us?
Do you think you're the only one in the company he drinks from?
Do you think I am the only one with disdain for his fledgling?
That's actually a good point. Oh my God. Sorry to pause right after that. Is Gabby saying that Armand and Lestat are doing blood exchanges? That's crazy. Well, no, what she said was Lestat is drinking from Armand, which makes sense because Armand's got that primo 500-year-old 4 away from Akasha elite blood. So that shit probably tastes like ambrosia to baby vamp Lestat, who's been a vampire for, I presume, less than a year, maybe a year. We don't know exactly how long. Well, no, in Armand's recollection of this event, like this scene, he says that they're like, I think he said like three months in, 90 days in, something like that, 100 days in. So assuming that, Armand was telling the truth there, the timeline is that they've started the theater and have been in the theater and running the theater for about 3 months. And I guess we don't know when we don't know when that happened after Lestat was turned and after he turned Nikki. I presume not that long. No, because Armand was stalking Lestat and Nikki when Nikki was human still. So, and then he kidnapped him and the coven fed on him. And then we had the scene of him going, oh, a month ago you got turned into a vampire. So, and then he turned him into a vampire. But we still don't know exactly the amount of time between when Nikki was turned and when the Théâtre de Vampire started. But I can't imagine more than a month or so in between those times. So, yeah, Lestat has been a vampire for less than a year. So he probably has been drinking from Armand's blood after only less than a year of being a vampire. He's getting the good stuff right now. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. How does that change the storyline of the book? Well, I guess if they weren't doing blood exchanges and it's just Lestat drinking from Armand, we could probably still have the climax of the Armand arc in the TVL book. Because the climax of that was about Armand flipping out and trying to drain Lestat of his blood rather than... But then again, I mean, even if they were doing blood exchanges, you could still have that. Like, that doesn't... Like, just because they've been having vampire sex at this point doesn't mean that he can't rescind consent once we get around to those scenes, That doesn't matter, actually. Like, if they were having vampire sex all throughout this time period, then like I said, that doesn't mean that he can't rescind consent later on, and we still have the exact same transgression. So fair enough. Okay, interesting.
You're the active manager. Manage.
You're his maker. Make him.
Okay.
Is there an evil older than you? Your maker, Marius.
My maker is dead. I've told you that already.
Y'all, when he finds out his maker is still alive, it's going to kill him.
I give you the theater of the vampires! The greatest spectacle of the boulevard!
Oof. Yeah, this all feels real.
He was dramatic as a mortal. He'll find his way.
No, he won't.
I believe you. I love you, Lestat.
He's lying. Okay, this is the part that feels fake to me. Like, okay, this was weird. Is this not weird? Am I tripping? Or does this not feel like a fake scene?
He was dramatic as a mortal.
Or a fake
find
moment
his way.
in the
No,
scene?
he won't.
I believe you. I love you, Lestat.
Okay, where do we go? How do we go from, oh, he'll find his way, I believe you, which obviously he's lying. He does not believe that. Which also might be an indication that that part feels fake. But either way, that if that is true, like, he does not believe that. He's just trying to position himself as opposed to Gabby and be like, oh, I'm not like Gabby. I believe you, Lestat. Even though he's fucking lying. But it's not actually that's catching my eye. It's actually the weird camera work. This is weird camera. Am I crazy, or is this not weird camera work? Like, he was just looking at him like, I love you, Lestat. And then Lestat going Christ, that makes sense to me because, you know, Lestat was rejecting him all throughout this period of the books, you know. But why is Armand not reacting to that? That's weird. That feels fake. That doesn't feel real. That doesn't feel like authentic Armand. Armand saying I love you out of nowhere was a bit weird. It feels like there was a scene missing to get us there. But I will accept that. And I will even accept the Christ rejection. I think that the weird blocking here, I can't tell if that's bad editing or if I'm supposed to think that that's a real scene, or am I supposed to think that that's a fake scene? I can't tell. That's not necessarily a good thing. If I can't tell if this is bad editing or if this is a real editing and there's more to this. But I actually think up to here, the dialogue feels fairly real. But the line that he says at the end, that feels like some bullshit. This part.
There's not room enough in this box.
And then he flounces off. That's fake. That's some fake shit. Lestat was faking that part.
Has anyone seen a letter?
We don't need a letter opener, Nikki. We don't get any letters.
We want to talk about your recent work in the theater, Nicolas. He's not in the chamber.
Nicolas.
There a week ago. You don't like my...
We think you should take some time away from the theater, Nikki.
Oh, he's struggling, man.
Did you two decide this in the wings? Huh? Oh, the box? The Place Dauphine? Last Sunday, the Hotel de Ville, and the Feast of Assumption, and the night of... Stop! Look at me! Look at...
Pause. What? Oh, no! Wait, go back. I know this is an emotional scene, but that was insane. What?
Well, it's not me. It's my hands, but I don't... Did you two decide this in the wings? Huh? Oh, the box? The Place Dauphine? Last Sunday...
Oh, they was fucking all over the theater and all over Paris, bro. And Nikki did know. Oh my God. Dead ass. Armand. Do you think Niccolo knows about us? And the answer is yes. Oh no. Lestat. Oh, that's terrible. One thing Lestat going to do is cheat on his depressed boyfriend. Oh, Jesus Christ. They was fucking all over the place. That's crazy.
We think you should take some time away from
That's
the theater,
awful.
Nikki.
Oh, that's super tragic, actually, though.
Did you two decide this in the wings? Huh? Oh, the box? The Place Dauphine? Last Sunday, the Hotel de Ville.
Last Sunday? Oh, God. They was doing it every week. Oh, every day of every week. Oh, God. Oh, no.
His mind is curdled.
How dare you open up my letter, he pouted and shouted.
This is
Here it is.
terrible.
Only one now.
Can you help him, please?
Oh, my.
Nikki? No.
Nikki,
Just
stop.
on the way to...
Nikki, no!
Oh, my God.
It's all a misunderstanding, my love.
Oh, my God. He threw his hand in the fire? That's gone now. Oh my God. The decision to have Lestat here. Interesting change. It's stronger. It's a stronger choice. I don't know how I feel about Armand not being the one to chop his hands off though, but it feels strong. This scene is really strong. I'm gonna go back a little bit. I mean, I don't want to see him chop his hand off again, but I'm gonna go back a little bit. Oh, that hand is gone. We are not putting that hand back on. Oh my god.
It's all a misunderstanding, my love. I wish to serve the god of the dark wood like the rest. Forgive me.
Oh my god. The way he is not even reacting to the pain of his hand being gone.
Your maker would tell you I was being kind, but in the moment, the words were true.
I'm sure they were. Like, I mean, things weren't working out, but it doesn't mean that you stopped loving him, you know? Or not stop, like, you know, like, like, even if you're not in love with somebody, you can still have love for them. Sometimes it works out that way, but it's just unfortunate that it's, like, so fucking tragic, though.
Light. I couldn't do it. But I watched as Armand
Armand had to do
into
it.
the fire. I made sure he stayed there. Circle. And he made only one sound.
Not Daniel looking revved up.
Including a papering service. Unlike your last vampire, there are no delusions here.
Oh. That makes me think that there are definitely
Arduous.
delusions here.
It's tour.
Why did that feel weird to me still? I'm not saying that he's lying, but I definitely think he's still holding something back there that he's not showing Daniel. We don't see him die. We don't see Nikki die. Is it something having to do with him actually dying? Or are they just being kind of tasteful? But this show is not tasteful. Like, this show showed us all of Louis's body getting burnt. Well, then again, he's also black, so that's if you guys don't know this, but there's a thing in Hollywood where black people are more likely to have their like pain and anguish show in a show or a movie than non-black people. It's a thing. Look it up. Look it up. They're more likely to have like more savage on-screen violent deaths and torture and stuff like that. It's more likely to show. Look it up. Just saying. Look it up. So the show is not immune to that tendency in Hollywood. Just sorry. As woke as this show is trying to be, it's not immune from things like that. Because I was gonna say, oh, we saw like all of Louis's body being burnt, but I was like, oh no, it might be falling into that category. Yeah, I think he's still hiding something about Nikki's death there. I do think it's actually a little bit strange that we didn't see it, but maybe they don't have the budget to show it. That doesn't feel right to me either. But I do think I do think actually most of that was true.
How was check me?
Like Carlo Vivari, fun for 3 minutes. Oh, you'll run fewer reds that way. There's a shameful tiki bar in Parkdale.
Rain
Girl.
check, Sophia.
Yeah, girl, get on. Get on. Cause what? You were on one today. I need you to go somewhere.
Forever. Right? Been trying to crack those cheeks for 2 months. Vampires,
all right, Daniel.
We're just like you.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Interesting slip of the tongue there, Daniel. Part of you still doesn't feel like an actual vampire?
Let's see what we got The hell? Go back a few more minutes. Did you go back far enough? All right, let's keep going back.
He was projecting that into Daniel's head.
My eye line.
Yeah. What? He just sat there.
Lestat's
like
funny as hell for that.
No one said anything.
Lestat's funny as hell for that.
You gotta be fucking kidding me. What is this?
No, yeah, it was frickin' Weirdsville. You just sat there for like half an hour, eh?
Does Gabby even know what was happening? Because obviously he wasn't projecting that into Gabby's mind because he can't do that as her maker. So did she just sit there for half an hour watching that? Or was she listening in on Daniel's thoughts and filling in the pieces?
He was crying fucking blood tears. Did no one see that?
Myself to the honeymoon.
Ooh.
You make that mess upstairs, friend? I did.
Oh,
Where's
we
the
getting
food?
unhinged Louis, huh?
I called him an Uber.
Sorry, did he just rip out a bunch of his fucking vertebrae? That's crazy.
Armand told the truth? You want to tell me what that is?
Yeah, what is that? Can you tell me?
Okay. This is about the fucking Lestat shit. Shit. He's my baby Jenks. It's baby.
Shut up, Bruce.
Yeah, honestly, he don't care.
Call me Bruce. Because my name is Killer.
Sir, be serious. Yeah, we know who you are, sir. I don't know how I feel about us
they call it here.
showing him her diary pages.
Apples with a hint of cowardice. Few prickly details.
I think we kind of all suspected that.
Put your blinkers on.
Oh,
Bruce
God.
walked back from the fire, leaned down over me, and for a second I thought I was gonna go right there, but no.
Back inside! You got your song.
When we got to his house,
I guess my biggest question
Back inside?
is tracking me down now.
As in, he's been carrying Magnus inside of him? Oh, buddy. Oof. And he's been trying to get them out of him through the songs? What did he say in the first episode? He said he's opened up the batch oven and he can't shut it anymore. Like Pandora's box. All the worst things in the world flooding out, except for the one thing caught inside, which is hope.
I read your little page turner.
and it's all gone.
When we are ready! She entertains a lot of little French folks with her death.
I don't have to tell you, dear
He's a
diary,
Daddy Lou. This
what it's
son
like
of a
to have
bitch.
a person crack your spine, open you up, and shove a pencil inside you.
Very odd company at the long table.
Are those
And
all
I
his
fought him.
fledglings?
Even with my broken arm, and then my re-broken arm. Worst thing ever. Nothing. And say nothing and do nothing. You know the stupidest of all?
Product of romping and stomping around the hippocampus.
I'm sorry. I get it, but like I need a second. because that was a crazy sequence. I actually have really complicated thoughts about it, though, I think. Trying to see how I feel about it, and I wonder if I'm going to feel differently by the end of the episode. But I think it was effective, but I don't know. Let's keep going.
But here's the thing. I love the music. The other side, a marble
I have mixed
floor,
feelings about it.
polished to the horizon.
I'll talk about it, I think,
Music
in
in its purest expression would make me worse and then make me better.
Make him worse and then make him better.
Bring
He's trying
on
to
the music.
break himself and build himself back up again.
The loneliness, it'll wait till you're done, till you come. Don't bury those feelings.
This is the best song so far.
Push it that way, dug on your own. Don't burn alone. You can't escape this loneliness. It'll pray, it'll press. How could anybody ever love you? Don't hide it away.
Hi. You okay? Or can I get you anything else?
I'm good, thank you, Regina.
It's not her. That's the same fucking actress in my eye. I mean, it's not her, but what? That's how we're having. Are we going to get a scene later on where her face changes and it actually doesn't look anything like Claudia? Or are we employing the doppelganger effect like we did with Yarda? And there is actually somebody out there that looks exactly like Claudia. Nearly 200 years later, or 100 years later. Interesting. Before we get into this, interesting. Yeah, that was absolutely the best song so far in the show. Absolutely. What was that one called? Loneliness? Yeah, that was the best song. It was also the most effectively used song in terms of the emotional weight of this back half of the episode. Really interesting moment of you have this song and it almost feels like you have the ghost of Nikki in the crowd, and you have the ghost of Magnus, and you have Gabby in the crowd, who's a ghost but also in the flesh. You know, she's a ghost of his past, but she also is real and in the flesh. So she's the kind of ghost that he can't, at least right now, he can't will away or, you know, process his grief over and then have that ghost disappear as much as it can. Like, you know, like we have the scene of Magnus going out the door, which is, I think, indicative of him finally starting to process his understanding about his feelings about his assault, right? Whereas in the beginning of the episode, he didn't even want to admit on camera that Magnus was his abuser. But of course, this is after the book put out there the conversation about how Magnus abducted and abused him, right? But through the song and through his, confronting it and his, starting to truly face and look at it on the road, something has shifted in his emotions about it enough that Magnus's ghost is now gone. That muse is now gone. But interestingly, Nikki has stayed. But maybe it's just about him excising the parts of him that were painful, which Magnus... Nikki, I'm not going to say that Nikki's wasn't also painful, but maybe painful in a way that he doesn't need anymore, Painful in a way that he's never going to want to forget Nikki and the pain of Nikki. But he doesn't want to define his life by the pain of Magnus. Does that make sense? So that's why in his psyche, Magnus is leaving the door. And Nikki is staying. Interesting that Gabby also leaves the door. Because we've been watching him the last couple of episodes start to not only place boundaries, but start to, I think, separate himself from her. This episode especially, I think he was just fucking done after her bullshit earlier in the episode. And she also, interestingly, left the building at the same time, or right after Magnus. But again, she's a ghost haunting. She's haunting him, but she's also physically there. So, all right, let's keep going.
Killing it every night, and I'm following them, on my phone.
All right, Alex, right?
Refresh.
Talking about the band.
They're blowing up. You're gonna hear about them soon. I feel sorry for myself.
Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a scene from the trailer. Is it not? This is the scene from the trailer where we saw Armand sitting in a gym. This is a gym. Oh, buddy, Armand is here.
Yeah, thank you for giving me another way through.
Thank you for sharing.
So it's a Christian AA meeting, too.
Who else wants to share tonight?
Or maybe, I guess it doesn't have to be a Christian AA meeting. Because usually in these are like non-denominational, so you can say God or you can say whatever deity you believe in to help you get through it. So, fair enough. So, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a Christian one.
Yeah.
Oh, buddy, we're about to circle around to Armand.
Come on, guys. I'll share. Hello? My name is Arun.
Hi, Arun.
Hello, Arun. And I am an addict.
Oh, it's at the end of the episode anyway. Pause. Oh, he's using Arun? Oh my god, that's kind of crazy. Oh, that ending. Oh, he's up to some fuck shit. He's up to some fuck shit. One second. Okay. Okay, I did actually want to watch the scene again at the end there with Armand a little bit, because there were a couple things that I didn't change to record it. Sorry. But I did want to see a couple things again as they turn the camera around. But I'll talk about that in the Armand section. So I did write down a few things that I want to talk about. I'm trying to do that for this show because I'm having these long discussions and I want to attempt to be a little more structured. Okay, hold on. Let me check the recording. Been recording for almost 2 hours. Of course. Okay. Let's split it up by character like I've been doing so far. We're gonna start with Lestat, of course. This was an interesting episode. You know what? I want to actually start about the episode. I do think that there's some uneven things happening, and there's still some stuff that I'm not enjoying about each episode, and it feels like the same thing I didn't enjoy about the last episode too. I truly wish we had fewer modern day scenes, and so that we could sit a little bit more with the historical scenes. Circling back to Lestat, good example. I wish we had had more time with Lestat and Nikki prior to his, I don't want to say his devolution. Let's say that. And his turn into vampirism, right? I wish we had had at least one more scene prior to that wasn't in the Magnus music video, the Lonely Island music video, but instead was the an actual scene of Nikki and Lestat just prior to everything going to shit, right? Or like a scene with him. Like, I know we don't have the money that or maybe we do have them. I don't know what the budget is like, to be honest. But maybe we just didn't have the sets to do like Renault's theater or anything. Or like they had to reuse shots for when we revisited the theater here. But which is completely fine. That's completely fine, right? And then they redid the balcony itself by adjusting, probably a set or something. But I do wish we had, like, even if we don't have the money to do Renault's theater, like the actual theater troupe, instead we could have gotten maybe the theater, but like they were on break or something outside of the theater or something. Like, we're just getting so much elided. I know I'm not expecting like full on Outlander, but I do wish that we would spend more time letting some of the historical stuff breathe more. And I think we should have cut out a bunch of stuff. I don't want to say a bunch, but several things in the modern day, like the Gabby Yarda scene. We didn't need that. Sorry, we didn't need that scene. We got her being evil in the past. We don't need her also being evil. I mean, I guess it shows that she hasn't changed, but the scene didn't need to be that long. Her going out and us hearing sex noises, and then Sam looking directly into the camera, letting it affect him, and us seeing his emotional like journey as he's listening to it, and then having her come back in, and we cutting that much shorter could have been effective enough. We didn't need to go in there and hear her yodeling or whatever the fuck they were doing with it. I don't think we needed the scene at all. I think actually the stuff that was happening in the past with her being super callous about what was happening with Nikki was enough to show how like absolutely terrible she is, anyway, whatever. I'll actually save that for the Gabby section. What I want to talk about Lestat. I want to talk about Lestat's relationship. It's interesting that the episode opened with him on the hunt for this young couple that he kills, completely innocent couple, who were just on their honeymoon or whatever. Interesting parallel with Bruce and Baby Jinx, also on their honeymoon. I wonder if we're going to actually unpack the Jinx killer everything or nah, but we'll see. But either way, so we have him hunting with Gabby and killing this couple, but he looked so out of it after. Like, he was not enjoying that at all. And I'm thinking part of it, I think obviously a lot of it has to do with it being Gabby and Gabby pulling him back into, I think, something that he hasn't, I don't want to say he hasn't done, because he talks about how he killed somebody. Like, Black Licorice is about how he killed somebody after he and Louis reconciled, which was before the book. So it's not that he's not killing people before Gabby came back, but obviously Gabby, killing with Gabby, it no longer feels good. Like he said in the last episode, now it feels weird for him, and he's dissociative, and he's not enjoying it. And probably because she's acting like an unmitigated asshole. She's awful. But it's interesting that we're examining his relationship with killing and depriving people of happiness, while also exploring the way that he harmed, or feels like he harmed, Nikki. And also exploring how Magnus harmed him, all in the same episode. And I'm not gonna go so far as to say that the show is asking us to care about this couple in the opening scene. I think obviously what we're supposed to care about is the fact that he looks like he's dissociating, even though he is supposedly having a lot of fun, and being with Gabriella is fun and all that stuff, but he's clearly not having fun. But I do think it's interesting to think about Lestat's relationship to violence, and killing as part of eating versus killing as part of, mockery and kind of petty vampiric violence against the masses. Because obviously Gabby has absolutely no moral compunction about killing people. It's like wouldn't even occur to her to think about that being a bad idea or a bad thing. But clearly something about that experience is shaking Lestat. I don't know what conclusion the show is asking us to come to, other than he's struggling in being around Gabby, which makes sense. And he's not yet ready to face why he's struggling so much with her, even though he knows that he's angry with her, but he's not ready to face exactly why he's angry with her. And I assume we're going to get there by the end of the season. But we also, in this episode, are examining Lestat's relationship to victimhood, right? And opening the discussion about Magnus, where obviously he doesn't want to actually expose his truth to the world. The whole documentary stuff, Rockstar documentary stuff, is a vanity piece. It's just about his ego. It's not actually, he doesn't actually intend to expose any real truths in this documentary. He's just, I don't want to say he's even pretending. He's more like, I would say he's actually trying to obfuscate the truth through the documentary and trying to distance himself from Louis and Claudia, and I guess Armand's portrayal of him in the book, because he's insistent on the idea that everything that they put in that book is complete lies and bullshit. When I don't know what to say to you guys, but I genuinely do not believe that all of the stuff they put in that book was bullshit. I think actually a lot of it was very true. Sorry, I do. I do actually think a lot of it was very true. And he keeps focusing on the minutia details of stuff that doesn't really matter, when actually the most salient things that happen in those books is the violence and abuse that he enacted upon Louis and Claudia. And of course, this episode, we're also examining Claudia's, well, no, actually, we're not doing that. We'll get to that in that section. But we're also talking about the abuse that Claudia experienced from Bruce. But we cannot divorce our examination of Lestat in the season without also talking about his abuse of Claudia and of Louis, right? So he's trying to distance himself from that by doing this documentary refuting the account in the book, but it's bullshit. He definitely did that shit. Sorry, he definitely did a bunch of that shit. Maybe not everything, or maybe he didn't intend everything. Maybe it wasn't with malicious intent. Some of it was, but a lot of it he did. And it's through, hopefully through this exploration of his own psyche, he will be able to come to face that, his culpability in everything that happened at Royale, which he keeps trying to deny and deny and deny. Even last episode, when faced with Louis across the table at the lawyer table, he was like, oh, you insulted me page after page after page. And it's like, I mean, I'm so sorry, but you abused them. And all they did was write about it. Actually, all Louis did was write about it. Claudia had no say in any of that. Again, I will talk about that later. So that's what happened. Regardless of whether or not Louis got some of the facts wrong, even if one of those punches to his face was real, you abused him. Right? The cheating, the verbal abuse as well, the emotional abuse, and the physical abuse. All of that shit was happening. So it doesn't really matter if he was insulting you page after page after page. Him insulting you is not as bad as you abusing them. Sorry. If I'm weighing sins, guess what? I don't know what to say to you, brother. So, but it's interesting that he, has finally started to like really say, hey, I want to look at my past. I want to look at what I have done. What am I actually responsible for? And what am I not responsible for? And I feel like we got a little bit of both in this episode. Although I don't know if I would necessarily, I don't know. He did make choices with Nikki. So like, obviously he's not responsible for anything that happened with Magnus. Magnus was a creep. He was a rapist. He was terrible. Like, he stalked Lestat and kidnapped him and forcibly turned him after keeping him for a week, right? He had no agency or power in that. All of his agency and power was stripped away from him in that, right? Except, at the end, his ability to defy Magnus and never say, yes, I want to have vampirism. Like, that was a thing in the book as well, where Magnus kept trying to make him, I mean, in the book, it wasn't like he wasn't kept for a week. It was like all in one night. But either way, Magnus kept trying to force Lestat to say he wanted it, ask for the gift of vampirism. And to the end, Lestat refused until, in a rage, Magnus turns him anyway, right? And then he, I think, gives one last speech and then throws himself into the fire. Interesting that we still haven't seen that. So while we do have the scene of Magnus leaving the concert, I wonder if we're still going to get Magnus again later, because we still didn't see him throw himself in the fire. Although we're seeing a lot of lack of people throwing themselves in the fire this season. We didn't see Magnus do it in this episode, and we also didn't see Nikki burning in this one, even though they said that it happened. And I can't tell if we are going to circle back around to those, or if we are genuinely just not going to see that. We're just going to be told that it happened. And I'm of two minds about it. but we'll see. We'll see what the season holds. We have 4 more episodes, so who knows? But anyway, circling back around, I think he's coming to grips with the things that he has done versus he had actual control and autonomy over versus the stuff he didn't have any control over. And I think Nikki is in a weird space because I think that he had control over how he handled Nikki and his suspicions, and obviously he wasn't ready to talk about what happened with Magnus. He also wasn't ready to talk about the fact that he's a vampire now. But I do think that it's reasonable of Nikki to be like, hey, something clearly happened a month ago and you won't talk about it, and don't gaslight me, because he was definitely gaslighting him that whole fucking section, and it was like, don't do that. Like, if you don't want to talk about it, I mean, just say that. Just say something happened and it was really terrible, and I'm not ready to talk about it, and I don't know what to say to you. But he also wasn't ready to talk about, I don't want to say Gabby was right, but maybe Gabby was a little bit right that he wasn't ready to talk about the fact that I don't know, did he want to break up with Nicholas? Or did he, like, I can't tell. And this is why I wish we'd had more scenes there. A couple more scenes between Nikki and Lestat, so that I could see them going from, Nikki and him meeting up in the inn and having this really sweet conversation, and, Nikki helping him, with his stutter, but it obviously not being, in any way kind of a mocking way or anything like that. And they're just having this really sweet scene. And then, obviously they get together. And then in between that and when he actually started to lose it after he was attacked by Armand and his coven, right? I wish we'd had more scenes in there. 1 or 2 would have been enough, although I would have wished, obviously, my fondest wish is that a lot of this season was primarily taking place in the past, but we're not going to get that, and I'm trying to let go of the idea that we're not going to get TVL, a lot of it in the past. We're just going to have most of it be in the present with occasional, cuts to the past. I'm trying really hard to come to grips with that and to understand that, right? But I think 1 or 2 additional scenes. Cut the whole Yarda and Gabby scene. Cut that whole fucking scene out. We don't need it. And instead, spend the time more with Nikki and Lestat. 1 or 2 more scenes with Nikki and Lestat so that we can understand, did Lestat actually slowly start to fall out of love with Nikki and want to break up with him? Or is that just something that Gabby said because she wants Lestat to break up with Nikki? And I can't tell. I can't tell which one it is. And I don't think, actually, this I don't think we're going to circle back around to. So, interesting. Okay. I've talked about that. Lestat and Daniel, interesting. Actually, I might want to save that for the Daniel section. I think I'll save that for the Daniel section because I have thoughts about it. But right now, I do have, no, I have thoughts about it. I'll save that for the Daniel section. Never mind. What an interesting way to show the Magnus stuff. First as this goofy ass music video that was a little bit funny, but extremely disturbing, actually. Like, the more you sit with it and think about it, it's really disturbing because they're putting, us in the POV of Magnus being a creep with Lestat and singing to him, as his, creepy, weird, but it was filmed like a music video, like a Lonely Island music video. Actually, it made me think of the books. In the books, now y'all can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I feel like I remember this. In the books, there was a whole section, like, while he was being a rock star, he also was releasing music and stuff like that, but he was releasing music videos to accompany each song. And in the music videos, he was reenacting the story that the song was retelling, right? And then he would have like actors play out the scenes and the characters in the stories, right? That was a thing in the books, where each song had like a music video and they had like fake actors playing them and stuff like that. And like people were watching it knowing that it was them. Like I think there was a part in the Queen of the Damned where Armand and Daniel talk about it, like about Armand's actor in the music video or whatever. I'm pretty sure that was in Queen of the Damned, or am I making that up? I feel like there was a scene about it. But anyway, that reminded me of that. But obviously, this isn't just actors playing in his music video. There's no music video. That's literally just the way that his mind is rendering it for us. So that's just Lestat, you know. So it was simultaneously a goofy, you know, Lonely Island SNL skit music video, but it also was very real because it was the very real actor who plays Magnus doing all that stuff. And we have this comedy section here at the beginning, and then we get the real section, and it's really awful and terrible and effective. And I did think that was actually quite effective. Both of them, actually, to highlight the creepiness of Magnus, but also the horror and the terror that Lestat felt in the moment. Yeah, it was effective. Okay, I do want to talk about Nikki, because it also made me think of the way that Magnus grabbed him out of bed next to Nikki. And Nikki references it in the flashback scene. Let's talk about Nikki. First of all, Joseph Potter killed the game. As did Sam. I don't want to act like Sam didn't also kill the game. They were really good. The acting in this, for most of it, was really good. I think some stuff is weak, but we'll save it. But Joseph, really good as Nikki. I talked about how they removed the class divide, which I think was interesting. But I guess we don't really need it. If we're not going to have like an Outlander full season, 10 episodes of Nikki and Lestat and, you know, the historical, the late 1700s with these guys, then we don't need to get into, we can touch on it, which they think they do briefly, but we're not going to get into all of the resentment building up between Nikki and Lestat that actually ultimately led to Nikki breaking up with Lestat in the book. That's not how they decided to go for it in the show, so we're not going to talk about it. Beyond that, Nikki, his descent into madness and the way that it was portrayed was interesting and good. We did change the hand chops. If you've been watching my reactions, you know how I've been looking forward to the hand chops. But I do think actually it was a much stronger choice to have Lestat there as Nikki descends into psychosis and mania. And just is struggling to the point where he then, you know, self-harms and then wants to commit suicide. But he doesn't commit suicide in this, right? Like, they had Armand and Lestat kill him instead. Mercy kill him, shall we say. At Lestat's behest. So we've changed that from Nikki asking Armand and the Coven to help him commit suicide, to Lestat asking Armand to help him kill Nikki. And I said during the episode that I think that there's something more to it. I can't tell if we didn't see any more to it there because of budget, or if we're not seeing all of it there because Lestat isn't ready to face it. And I can't tell which one it is, and I don't think I'm going to be able to until we get the full season. So again, I'm going to reserve judgment until the end of the season on whether or not there's more there and why it was elided, or if there's not more there, why was it changed? Because it completely changes the dynamic between Nikki, Armand, and Lestat. That completely changed. Because remember, I think I've talked about it in my long spoiler predictions, but Nikki and Armand, Nikki is the one who wanted to do the idea of the Théâtre de Vampire in the first place, right? And he and Armand are the ones who ran the theater together. And then built up this like 10-year-ish long relationship with each other after Lestat and Gabby already left. They had like a whole other relationship with each other as Coven leader and playwright and performer, etc. in the Coven. It was completely different. I don't want to say completely different. I'm sure there's still shades of it still here, but and then it culminated, and then Lestat had no fucking idea what was going on except for the letters that they were exchanging, right? But it ultimately, what we find out is that at some point Nikki, is kind of losing it in the street. Armand, annoyed by it, brings his ass in, chops his hands off, and throws him in a room with his violin and says, "Chill out." And, the rest of the Coven are like, brother? And so they're like trying to calm Armand down and like, hey, it's okay. You can let him out. He's learned his lesson, that kind of thing. He chops his hands off and like, is like, I'm done with you. And it's like a punishment, just like a temporary punishment, but still a punishment. And the rest of the Coven calm him down, like after a few days or a week or something like that. And then he goes back in and they give his hands back, or Armand gives his hands back and sews them back on and everything. But after that experience, Nikki, obviously at his lowest, asks to die, essentially. And so they, help him commit suicide by jumping into the fire. And, Armand presides over it. But we don't hear about it except in letters that Lestat is receiving, because by that point he's already left for years. Like I said, 10 years later. So he's been on the hunt for Marius, and he's been getting letters that entire time. So I do think, it's secondhand knowledge. He doesn't really know if it's true. We, the audience, don't really know if it's true, or if, they're faking the events, or what happened. We don't know, really. We just have to take the Théâtre de Vampire. I think it was Eleni, whatever. I think it was her who was writing. But we had to like take their word for it that all of that was true. But here it's different, because now Lestat is there. Not only is he there, he's culpable. He's part of this. He made the decision to turn Nikki into a vampire at Nikki's absolute lowest. He had the worst experience in his life with Armand, of course, because Armand is always going to fuck up a boy. That's one thing you got to know about Armand, is he's going to do some absolutely insane shit to somebody. So all of that is true. He kidnapped Nikki. They fed on him, freaked him the fuck out. Lestat came and got him. Seemingly all that's the same. Like, as far as we can tell, they've reused the shots and everything. So all that stuff that we saw in season 2 from Armand's POV was true. He was telling the truth about that. We even saw, if I remember correctly, I'd have to rewatch the episode, but like, I think we even saw reused clips from that, not just from under Lioncourt, but also them walking on the street together. Like we saw that all reused. So all that happened. So for a while we were wondering, because we knew that he had edited Gabby out of it, but I thought he had edited Gabby out of the street confrontation as well. But it looks like no. Armand was telling all the truth about that section at least. But after that, he decided to turn him in the midst of this man's lowest point, which is very much an echo of how it happened with Louis. Like, he kind of low-key, like, if we're being honest, Lestat low-key entrapped Louis, met up with him at his lowest point, where he was in the worst pits of depression from his brother's death, brother's suicide right in front of him, and his mother's rejection, and he was just at his motherfucking lowest, feeling awful. And that's when Lestat came up on him and killed a bunch of people in front of him, and then thereby continuing to traumatize him, and then asked him, just like Magnus did, I'm sorry, there's a parallel there. He also asked him, hey, you just gotta say yes, nod your pretty head, yada yada yada. Like, I'm so sorry. I know we don't want to talk about it, but there are definite parallels in how Lestat changed Louis versus how Magnus changed him, and how he changed Nikki. And the thing about with Nikki is that, again, he found this man who was at his absolute lowest at that point, like in the worst state there. And he changed him, even though Gabby, God forbid I side with Gabby here, but even though Gabby said, nah, this is not a good idea. Hell, well, I mean, it already happened by the time he met up with Armand again, presuming that whole section is actually true. When he met with Armand again later, even Armand was like, that was not a good idea. Like, brother, I just tortured the shit out of him. That's not a good idea. That's a crazy thing. That would be a crazy thing for Armand to have done, is just like, hey, I know I just kidnapped him and did some diabolical shit to him, but in my advice, I don't think it's a good idea to turn him right now, okay? That's kind of what happened. But interestingly, like, Lestat still did it. That's a choice that he made. Ultimately, like, we could sit here all day about who was responsible for driving Nikki insane, but the only person that was responsible for turning him into a vampire is Lestat. And it's kind of, it's also echoing with Claudia, like, because I think that in this episode, Nikki and Claudia were very much paralleled in a number of ways. But the turning scene also between Nikki and Claudia is also there, where we have, well, I guess it's a little different, but still, we have Louis begging Lestat to turn Claudia. And at the end of the day, we could sit here all day about who is blah, 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 blah. Oh, Louis begged him, and Louis used his relationship to blah, blah, to coerce. Doesn't matter. Actually, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, Lestat turned her. Lestat had the power to turn her or not turn her, and he made the decision to turn her as something that he felt like was something that could save his relationship with Louis, right? And the same thing, and maybe there was some fear that Louis was in the same state as same state as Nicholas, and so turning her, he felt like was going to prevent Louis from going down the same path as Nicholas. Although I think that there are very distinct differences between Louis and Nicholas's temperament. That even though he was super depressed, I'm not saying that there was never a point. Obviously, we literally watched on screen Louis get to the lowest point of his life and try to kill himself, obviously. So I'm not saying that he would never try to kill himself, but what I'm saying is that I don't know if the fear that Lestat felt about Nikki was necessarily absolutely true for Louis. But it doesn't really matter because he felt like it, right? Like, we gotta always remember, facts are irrelevant, feels are everything to Lestat's narration in this season. So he felt like maybe Louis was going to go down the same path as Nikki, and so that's why he violated Claudia's autonomy in that moment, because she certainly did not give any kind of permission to anybody turning her, to anybody in that room. Sorry, like, that was a violation. We're not, I guess, I don't know if the show is really truly ready to dig into how Claudia's turning was very much an echo of, it's very much an assault. Like, she did not at all give permission there, but also was trying to save her life. It's a complicated situation, right? But also, like, her life was only in danger because of Louis accidentally inciting a race war. Like, we could go back and back and back and back and back, I guess, but, you know, like, at the end of the day, the only person who turned her was Lestat. Same thing with Nikki. At the end of the day, the person who turned him was Lestat. So he feels responsible for that. And so it's interesting to have this scene change so that Lestat and Gabby and Armand are in this room watching Nikki absolutely lose it and chop his hand off and everything, and making Lestat be there is much stronger choice than not be there and get it through letters or whatever the hell. No, that's not a strong choice. It works in novel form because you can read the letters, yada yada yada, and it's also a little bit sad that he isn't there for Nikki's death. But in the show, nah, it's very much a stronger choice to have him there, and I really like that change, actually. And then you have Lestat, interestingly, turning to Armand. Well, he turns to Gabby first, but Gabby is spending that whole fucking scene chuckling, and in strange choice. We'll save it for the Gabby. We'll save it for the Gabby section. But Armand had a different reaction, and I guess I can save that for the Armand section. But he turns to Armand for help as coven leader and as maitre. And presumably, if we are to believe what he said there, presumably Armand, you know, helped. He took that burden off of Lestat's shoulders. But I wonder if that makes Lestat feel even guiltier that he didn't even have the courage to finish what he started. You know, like that he passed that off onto Armand to do. And that actually is making him feel, that's actually making him feel guiltier and worse about Nikki's death, is that he wasn't even brave enough, at least in his mind, brave enough to end it himself, even though he's the one who's responsible for turning him into a vampire in the first place. And that's one of the reasons that his ghost has been haunting him, you know? Maybe. So 1 second. Interesting stuff. Really strong scene work from both of them, from everybody in that room, actually. Really good stuff. I just wish we had longer to sit with it And I wish we had seen the actual death, but maybe we'll circle back around to it and reveal more about what happened after Lestat asks Armand to help him. And then Armand steps in. So maybe we'll see more. Or maybe we never will. Hard to say. Okay. Let's talk about Armand. Because we're talking about Armand now as this concept of a coven leader. And a maitre. It's interesting. I'm really fascinated by what we got out of Armand in this episode. I do wish we had seen him doing more instead of just talking about it. But I know that the next episode is going to most likely be focused on Lesman. So we may get, again, revisits of some of these scenes, but from a different angle, but from the Armand focus, right? I can see them doing that. So I don't want to say too much about how Armand is being used in the season, but I think it's interesting to think about, at least for here, the idea of Armand as a coven leader and as a maitre versus Lestat's lover versus Lestat's annoyance versus Lestat's abuser versus Dan's abuser. Because presumably all the scenes with Nikki and everything like that are happening after Armand flips the fuck out and attacks Lestat and tries to drain him and assault him and everything like that, and drink his blood down, and he gets thrown off and then gets his ass beat by Lestat, and then they take him home and clean him up. Lestat takes Armand home and cleans him up and everything like that, and Gabby's there and helps with bathing Armand and, you know, cleaning his hair up and everything like that. And then they presumably that's similar, but I don't know. I think they're changing that for the show. I think they're changing some of that for the show. And I just don't know what. And we'll know later on in the series, I think. I don't know if we'll know fully until the full season is out how much they're changing there. But I do think, in the context of this episode, I think it's interesting that we are catching up with them after those events, because those were like crescendo moments in the book, that all the like dissolution of the coven, the ideological battle between Lestat and Armand and Gabby and Alessandra being parallel mother figures. Armand's den mother, cult mother, versus Lestat's actual biological mother, but also his daughter. And then on Armand's side, this is his den mother, his cult mother, his abuser who kidnapped him and tortured him into insanity, but also is now a member of his coven and therefore under him. Like, it's a lot of interesting dynamics there in the book. And there's like a whole like philosophical debate about the nature of vampirism and the nature of surviving eternity, and freedom versus structure, and et cetera, and it sets up, of course, the ideological through line of the Lesman relationship from not just that book, but pretty much their entire relationship all through the books, right? Is this ideological battle between the two of them about how to live your life, how to survive eternity. And so presumably these scenes are taking place after that, after all of that has already happened and they have kind of settled down somewhat in Paris, but we're lengthening the time. So we have Lestat and Gabby spending way more time with Armand than they do in the books. In the books, that all happens in like a long weekend. I don't know, like a couple of weeks. And then it's done. And Lestat and Gabby are gone and they're off on their adventure on the Devil's Road, right? But well, I mean, you know, the Devil's Road is about more than that. It's not actual. You know what I mean? But like, that whole section is considered to be called the Devil's Road. But in the show, they stay in Paris. And it kind of looked like, obviously Gabby wanted to leave, and she's like questioning Armand about other covens and other places and his maker and everything like that. But Lestat seemingly, you know, but he was also didn't want to leave Nikki behind, which of course is different from what Armand said in his little fan fiction in season 2. But of course, he wanted to present Lestat as this callous cad who didn't love him and didn't love Nikki and just used him for his abilities to learn his abilities and then left him a week later. When in fact, actually, that's not what happened. In fact, he stayed there for a long time. And apparently, Lestat and Armand were carrying on a crazy affair around Paris that Nikki knew about. So that part of the story is true. It just wasn't true exactly in the way that Armand said it. Like it's like he used bits of the truth to formulate his own story to have a certain effect. One, to make himself look a little bit more like the victim, although not completely. I've talked about this in my long video. I think it's really interesting that Armand, for whatever reason, did not take out the fact that he was stalking the shit out of Lestat and then confronted this baby vamp and beat him up and took his boy and then let his coven feed on Nikki. And then, like, he kept all of that in, that he was acting absolutely crazy to Nikki and Lestat during that section. He kept that in for some reason. And I think that's super interesting in terms of Armand's psyche, that he didn't actually try to rewrite that part. He kept all of that. He kept the fact that he was kind of the villain in that story, but he also, you know, painted himself as the love interest of that story. Which apparently is not true, but it's not really true either, because I think he was like, oh, Lestat and I had this crazy affair, which they did apparently, but Lestat didn't care about me, and I fell in love with him, and he didn't love me. He said the words back to me, but it was fake, and he just wanted to use me. But he also said, but he also wanted to use, he also left behind Nikki, and abandoned him. But now we know that, and in the books, that's kind of what happened. Like, I don't want to say he abandoned Nikki. Nikki broke up with him in the books and was very different after he became a vampire. And they just drifted apart. And Lestat and Gabby just left Nikki in Armand's care. But in the show now, no, they stayed with him until Nikki declined, and then he died which interestingly, that's different from season 1 when he was telling the story to Claudia and Louis. The story that he told to Claudia and Louis is actually more in line with the books, where Nikki passed on after we parted ways. But now what we're saying is that that's not fucking true, actually. Like, he was lying to Louis and Claudia to probably get distance from his own feelings of culpability in it. Or maybe they just changed their mind in between seasons, but that's okay. We're not going to care about the Doylist view of this. We're going to care about the Watsonian view. And the Watsonian view is that he lied to Louis and Claudia, even as he was telling them the truth there in season 1, finally coming clean. And instead, he lied to them and was actually there when Nikki died, because he asked Armand to put him out of his misery and kill him for him. Interesting that we had Armand killing Nikki in the same way that he killed his followers in the books. Is that he would throw them in a fire and nail them to the ground so that they couldn't run away from the fire. And that's essentially what he did with Nikki. Interesting. But it's interesting to think about it as a duty that he feels he has to do as Coven leader, right? Like, we talk a lot about in this show Armand's relationship to the great laws and to his duty as a Coven leader. And for the most part, at least in my opinion, for the most part, he takes them very seriously. He actually takes his Coven duties very seriously, which makes sense because he was tortured into absolute fucking insanity and indoctrinated into the cult over a long period of time, at least in the books. And they've mentioned it in the show as well, that happened. And so it's actually very important for him to uphold the laws, and he only very, very, very occasionally breaks those laws for someone. And quite frankly, he's only done it twice. Once for Lestat and once for Louis, when it comes to allowing Lestat and Louis to remain outside of the Coven and not immediately kill them or force them to join. Although I guess that begs the question, what was happening with Nikki and... Nikki was definitely part of the Coven because he was calling him Mita. What was happening with Lestat and Gabby? Were they part of the Coven? Because Gabby talks about the company, but they weren't acting, but Lestat was acting. So he was part of Armand's Coven. Kinda. Because he was acting on stage, like he was part of the troupe. So technically, he joined the Coven. He joined Armand's Coven. Even if it was briefly. And not in any, like, tangibly, subservient way. Obviously, he wasn't super subservient to Armand or anything like that. Like, I can't imagine it. I can't even imagine Lestat, but that's very different from the books, because in the books he wanted no parts of it. No parts of it. So in the show, he joined the Coven, I guess, to maybe ease the transition for Nikki or something. I mean, but Lestat in the books and in the show loved acting. Like, we know that from last episode, that he really wanted to be an actor for a while. And he was an actor for a while until it all went bad with Magnus. And then, at least in the book, after everything that happened with Magnus, everything changed and acting kind of soured for him. And he also was struggling because he was new to his vampiric powers, and he was freaking out audiences and stuff like that, right? But he didn't join the Théâtre de Vampire. They set it up and then they immediately left. But in the show, he stayed around and became part of the troupe. That wasn't a lie. Armand was telling the truth about that. So what does that mean for the Armand-Lestat relationship? That Lestat was part of his Coven, even if just nominally. That's interesting. That's interesting. They certainly spent more time together, and apparently a lot of time together. Messy. That was so messy. That was some messy shit. When he was like, I can't even with your desperation, or whatever the hell he said, and then he flounces outside of. I was like, that shit felt fake. And then, of course, 2 scenes later, then we have Nikki basically confirming that shit was fucking fake. Actually, they was actually fucking all over the place, including the balcony. But I think it's interesting that both Armand and Lestat have, lied about this balcony scene for whatever reason, and they're both hung up on it. Why is this the hill they are dying on? This balcony scene. What actually happened in this balcony scene? I don't believe Armand, obviously, and I don't believe Lestat, obviously. So there's something else that happened in this balcony. Is there a middle ground? Are we going to get Gabby speaking on it? Who the fuck is going to tell us the truth about this balcony scene, and does it matter? Maybe it's just some petty shit. Maybe it's just them being petty. Maybe, I don't know. Because what Lestat is denying is not that they fucked, because he himself told us in this episode that they was fucking. And he also told us that they were doing blood exchanges. So if they weren't like fucking, they were vampire fucking. And we've established earlier in the season or last episode that the height of vampiric, actually no, in episode 1 and episode 2, they've both established and reestablished that the height of vampiric desire is actually not physical sex, human sex. It's actually blood exchange. And they very pointedly had Gabby tell us, the audience, that they were doing blood exchanges. I mean, Gabby also pointedly says, "Oh, he's not just drinking from you." I guess assuming that in the company, is she saying that, like, is she being honest, or is she just needling Armand? Because she, of course, was needling him that whole scene. I'm not saying that Lestat wouldn't drink from other people, but he's not getting the power boost that he would get from Armand. And presumably, this is when Armand was teaching him vampiric abilities, like the mind gift and the fire gift, etc., and the cloud gift, all that stuff, right? Presumably, that all was actually really happening, that he was learning from Armand. Actually, maybe him and Gabby. Armand was actually teaching Gabby Lestat, and possibly Nikki too. I don't know if Nikki had the aptitude to learn the same way as Gabby and Lestat, but either way, he was at least teaching Lestat during this period that we know. So the blood exchange seems to be, part of it. I mean, Armand is always allowing, like, I don't want to say always, but there's I don't want to say always like he lets anybody drink from him. No, actually. They very carefully only shown us 2 people that have drunk from him, and that's Lestat and Louis, and those 2 are his special ones who he, again, breaks the laws for. The laws that he's very attached to, as we know from what Santiago said, and how he, like, I want to talk, do I want to save it for the Daniel section? I do want to save it for the Daniel section. But, Armand's relationship to the laws is actually very complicated, and I'm curious to see how the season is going to explore that. As we cover all of this Armand told the truth nonsense, and the Fang Gang, the Children of the Darkness Reborn bullshit, or whatever the hell, that these young vampires are trying to revive the Children of the Darkness, and they're latching onto Armand as their spokesperson for that, which they're bucking up the wrong tree, because I can tell you right now that Armand is not going to appreciate that at all. Armand is not going to appreciate that at all. Sorry, I'm checking the recording, because I'm almost 3 hours in. Oh my God. And I'm only like halfway through the talking points that I want. Because I haven't even talked about, I've talked about the cheating and stuff. I talked about the idea of Armand being pressed into, hey, I need to, because one of the duties of a coven leader, as it pertains to, the coven system, is that it is their duty to determine who is suited to being a vampire, and allowing, either turning a vampire themselves or allowing another vampire in the coven to turn somebody. And it's their duty to assess that human and decide whether or not they are suited to eternity. They are also charged with assessing fledglings and deciding if they are suited for eternity. That's like a thing that Armand is supposed to do as part of his coven leader duties. And we could sit here and go back and forth about how good he is at that part of the job, but like I said, Armand takes his duties actually very seriously, much more seriously than I think people realize when you're watching just the show. Even though they've said it, like, again, they said it in season 2 that, like, Santiago told Claudia straight up, like, Maitre has a grave attachment to the laws. Okay? He's very serious about this shit, actually. Which made it unusual for him to break those laws and bend them for Lestat and Louis, which honestly is why shit spiraled so out of control with Santiago, is because the Coven and Santiago and the Coven all felt really slighted by the way that Armand was bending the rules for Louis, this random vampire that nobody really liked. And that built up all kinds of crazy resentment. That was a failing on Armand's part as a leader, right? But there's an interesting burden, I think, that he must feel as a leader here in this episode, of somebody who has seen, because at this point he's almost 300 at the time of the events of this episode. So he must have seen so many things in those 300 years. And most of that he was a Coven leader during all of that. So he's been assessing fledglings, deciding whether or not to kill them or let them into the Coven, or assessing humans and whether or not to allow them to be turned. I actually do have my thoughts about whether or not, I don't think he was ever turning anyone, or well, obviously we know he's never turned anyone until Daniel, but I don't think he was ever allowing anybody to turn him, because turning somebody into a vampire is disgusting to him. He's repulsed by it. He finds it to be the worst thing you could ever do, and he does not approve it. So I can tell you right now that in all 500 years, he was, all 300 or so years. Well, I guess he wasn't 300. He was probably closer to like 260, 240, 250, something in there. So either way, though, I can tell you right now that entire time when he was a Coven leader, he was not allowing a single person to turn somebody else, which is why the one time we see him punish somebody authentically for breaking the law, it was Santiago's maker, who made Santiago without his permission. And that was the thing that he was the angriest about, was you turned somebody into a vampire. That was like the most horrifying thing that Armand can think of, that he's very hardline about. Like, he's very hardline about that. And we have that, and it's been repeated throughout the seasons, that he's very hardline about turning people into vampires. He is not like it. So this whole like Children of the Darkness Reborn, great conversion shit, he is not going to like that. He is hard line about turning people into vampires. He does not like it. He does not want it. He is staunchly against it. So he definitely wouldn't have appreciated the Fang Gang, like trying to rep him or whatever the fuck they were doing. And he would not have approved of, if Lestat had been in his Coven at the time, he would not have approved of Lestat turning Nikki. He would have told him flat out, don't do it. In which we see, I guess, in season 2, him saying that to Lestat after the fact. You turn Nikki into one of us? Bad idea. It's not a good idea. But I think he also probably saw that there was something that was going to go wrong there. But it's also his fears, which of course impacted how he conducted himself with Claudia, was just that he genuinely, I think, thought that she wasn't going to make it through eternity. And as somebody whose job for the last 400 years was assessing humans and fledglings and determining whether or not they can survive eternity, him truly thinking that she wasn't going to survive and that vampirism is a curse and actually probably none of us will survive. I think that the flaw in Armand's logic, which is, you know, hey, we know that Armand is fucking flawed in his logic, is that I think that he is so hardline because he truly does not think that anybody will be able to truly survive eternity, not even himself ultimately. I think he kind of has this feeling that ultimately he will succumb. He's not ready to succumb now, but I think he kind of feels or fears that he also will not survive eternity. And he's been trying to find a way to survive eternity this entire time. And he doesn't think anybody can, except for maybe a couple of people. One of them is Lestat. I think he truly believes that Lestat has what it takes to survive eternity. He certainly feels that after he jumps him and tries to assault him and take his blood, etc., 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 I think he truly believes that Lestat has what it takes. And the fact that Lestat was able to defeat him is part of what makes Armand admire him and desire him and want to be him and want to love him and want to be with him, is because Lestat was able to defeat him in that moment. And Lestat has that energy, has that charisma, that vibe of somebody who could survive eternity in a way that Armand wants to do as well, and wants to cling on to. But I think he just did not see that in Claudia, but that's also because he was resentful of the idea that Claudia probably could have survived eternity if he's the embodiment of pessimism, whereas Lestat is always optimistic, essentially. To boil them down, Lestat is very optimistic, and Armand, as his foil and as his contrast, is pessimistic. And so he approached Claudia with this pessimistic view and had already decided that she wasn't going to survive, and therefore I have to do things to hurry that along. Better to get this over, better to rip the Band-Aid off, right? So he spends all of season 2 essentially torturing her and mind-fucking her in order to hurry this along, right? And it's actually making me wonder if he was doing that with Nikki a little bit. Not that he was like mind controlling Nikki or anything like that. Nothing crazy like that. But maybe, I don't know. Was he doing more with Nikki to try and hurry that along, just like he did with Claudia? Because again, Nikki and Claudia are very parallel. Or maybe he didn't have to. Honestly, maybe he just didn't have to. He just had to sit back and wait, you know? And he certainly, I could tell you whether or not he was messing with Nikki or not, I can tell you right now that Nikki going the way that he did and then him killing him probably helped to cement in his mind that he's just not going to make it. It's not a good idea to turn people. People are not going to make it. Like truly, it's probably helped to like reinforce that belief in him, and again make him more and more hard. Like the more times that he sees people lose it and jump in the fire, which he's seen multiple times, including people in his own coven, the more he sees that, the more he truly believes that vampirism is a curse, is a horror show. Just like Lestat said in this episode, I call it being a god, you call it being a monster. Is that because of Armand? And the truth is, probably, actually, because Armand genuinely views it as being monstrous, as being horrifying and evil. And that's what he was taught in the cult, of course. He was kidnapped and indoctrinated and tortured into a cult for hundreds of years. He was brainwashed and brainwashed and brainwashed. So he truly has come to believe that vampires are all evil, that we have to behave evilly, and we can't make it, and eventually we're going to kill ourselves. We're all going to kill ourselves or die. And he's seeing this over and over and over again, and it's all just reinforcing his belief. And then when you get to him and Claudia, he is superimposing that belief onto Claudia and not giving her a chance to live her life authentically. And that's what Madeline was saying to him in that scene, is that you don't know. Armand believes that he knows because he, in his arrogance, is, removing agency from Claudia, removing agency from Madeline, and not allowing them to live their lives. It doesn't really matter. In the grand scheme of things, if Claudia kills herself in 30 years, then so be it. That's her choice. But she's allowed to have that choice. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. He doesn't know. But he's doing this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy with her, where he presumes he knows, he assumes he knows, and he can't allow himself to think any differently. Because if he can think differently, then all of his ideology is broken, And he's been killing. Like, imagine he believes that he finally faces the fact that some vampires are able to survive eternity. Vampires outside of like Lestat are able to survive eternity. then he then has to face the fact that all of these times he's been killing fledglings, he's just been killing people that could have survived. He'll have to face that. That he actually was been doing all kinds of crazy shit in this cult, and it all is meaningless. And in fact, not just meaningless, but he has done irreparable harm to thousands of people, thousands of vampires over the centuries. He's never, I don't want to say never, but it would take a lot for him to have to face that. Anyway, we are already 3 hours in. Oh my God, y'all. And I still have like a whole bunch of bullet points to get to. I haven't even gotten into Louis or Daniel or Gabby. Let's talk about modern day. Yeah, let's talk about modern day stuff with Armand, just really briefly. I don't know what the hell he's doing with... No, actually, I do have some ideas about what the hell he's doing with Alex. There's a couple of things, right? So we saw this shot in the trailer, and there was all this speculation online, as theories and stuff like that. I at first personally thought that he was sitting down for a little segment of an interview for Daniel's documentary, but once we started getting into the episodes, I was like, oh no, that's not it. But it turns out he's there to stalk Alex, seemingly. He's in an AA meeting. You know, that's so funny. I do think that there's some comedy in the idea of Armand, because Armand's personal way that he likes to kill is that he likes to find people who are suicidal, who are at their lowest, and coax them into suicide, and then gently, at least to his mind, gently ease them into death, etc. And there's a variety of reasons for that from the books on why he does that. In the books, at least, it's like this middle ground he has between Santino's point of view about what kind of kills you're supposed to have and Marius's point of view. Marius believes that you should only kill the evildoer, and Santino believes that you should be absolutely wanton in your kills, and you're supposed to embody the evil of Satan, etc., etc. So you should kill indiscriminately, right? And so Armand develops this kind of almost middle ground where he will kill innocents, but he won't kill people who don't want to live. Oh, sorry, he won't kill people who want to live. So in his mind, he's not doing harm to the world because the people he kills are people who already want to die and will kill themselves eventually. Actually, that kind of ties into his idea of vampires all inevitably being on a path towards suicide. Actually, it ties in quite a bit to that. But that's how he kills as well. He tries to choose people that he thinks are not going to survive in one way or the other, and he just hurries that along a little bit. And therefore, in his mind, in the calculus of the world, he is, the sum of his damage is, evens out, because he's not killing people who have a will to live or who have all of their lives ahead of them. It's kind of like the weeping angels from Doctor Who, isn't it? Like the idea of killing people, but you're killing them by taking away their potential future. It's kind of the antithesis of that. He tries to make sure he doesn't kill anybody who are destined to die anyway. Who are probably going to kill themselves in the next couple of years in some kind of drunken stupor or whatever. So it makes sense to me that he would trawl Addicts Anonymous kind of meetings, or suicide prevention meetings and stuff like that in order to find his prey. Now, outside of Armand's psyche, that's actually kind of messed up, because some of these people are just having a low point in their life, but they could like they could get themselves out of it with just a little help and support. But of course that doesn't occur to Armand, because nobody came to help and support him when he was at his lowest in his life. The many times he was at his lowest, absolute fucking horror show of a life. Nobody came to actually help him. So that's not a thing that happens. Nobody comes to save you. Nobody comes to help you. So you either get through it by, the strength of your own will, or you're going to die. And I might as well help you out, That's how Armand thinks. So it makes sense that he's at an AA meeting, but him being at an AA meeting that Alex is at means that he's not just there to troll for victims to eat. He's actually there for a purpose. I don't think it's coincidence. I think he was following him. And I went back to watch the scene again, and I think it's really interesting that he has styled his hair to look like Alex. What was that? That was weird. I mean, that's part of his mimicking, right? Like he's a mimic. Like, he uses mimicry to engender trust and kind of ease into companionship with somebody, and as part of a manipulation tactic. So it makes sense that he would trim his hair to look like Alex. I mean, it'll grow back in a day, so it doesn't really matter. So he trims his hair to look like Alex, also to look like Nikki, because again, I think that Alex and Nikki look a lot alike, and they're actually very similar. And now I'm wondering, is Armand going to see that similarity as well and also get flashbacks to Nikki? I've been wanting Nikki Mon scenes, because we're not going to get the Nikki Mon 10-year marriage, semi-marriage, that we got in the books, where they were kind of living together in a house next to Magnus's tower and waiting for Lestat to come back to them, and kind of low-key kind of, using each other as a replacement for Lestat. Very Luman-esque. We're not going to get the Nikki Mon marriage, I don't think, because we've decided to have Lestat stay there and be part of both their lives. So instead we got Nikki Mon Stott cheating arc. One thing Armand gonna love is having an affair. Why is he so into that? That whole, ooh. It's like, he's like, ooh, he gets a little bit of a thrill over the idea of having an affair. And I think that's super interesting. It's a super interesting aspect to his character. Probably rooted in the way that Marius prioritized his relationships, where his real wife is Pandora, and his relationships with Bianca and Amadeo were kind of like affairs, or second to his, primary romantic goals of being with Pandora. They were both kind of her replacement, and he very much made sure they felt like that. I don't want to say he made sure of it, but they certainly understood that and felt that in their relationship with him. So I wonder if there's something twisted. I mean, he also had relationships, like Armand had these relationships while he was a child, so it would have been ingrained in his psyche, like at a very, life-changing, life-shaping moment. The fact that he was technically the other woman in his relationship with Marius. He was the other woman to both Bianca and Pandora. So that feeling of being the other woman probably kind of cemented his... it's something that he's into. I don't know. I understand him, but that seems bad. I don't say it seems bad, but it seems like something you need to unpack, baby. Like, baby, I think you need to be in these AA meetings for real. Like, I need you to start soaking. Like, I know you're here to track your prey and maybe kill some people, but I need you to actually start soaking in some of the stuff, some of the therapy that they're offering you as well. I think that would be fucking hilarious, is if he's going to these AA meetings to meet up with Alex and start manipulating him and ingratiating himself into Alex's life, and and he starts like latently soaking up some therapy that actually ultimately might help him. I think that would be funny as fuck. I don't know if we're gonna get that in the show, obviously. I don't think we have time for that. But I think it would be hilarious if he actually is attending these and like subconsciously is taking in some of the tools for self-improvement. I think that would be funny as hell. Oh, interesting. I did want to talk about, because I was talking about Amadeo anyway. He's using the name Arun for this. Very interesting character choice. What does that mean? You know, I was talking about Amadeo, and it's interesting because Amadeo with Marius is fresh off of his sex trafficking. Like, he was being sex trafficked for who knows how many years, right? And then he was bought by Marius and then immediately molested by Marius and continuously molested through his childhood by Marius. During that period, at least in the book, I don't know if they're going to show that in the show. I don't know if we have time or if we're going to get a spin-off where we can focus on Armand's story and actually unpack this and Marius and Bianca and Pandora and all that. But either way, in the book, in TVA, Armand or Amadeo was a teenage alcoholic. He was an alcoholic. He was an alcoholic. I know that they probably didn't have a word for that during the time period that he lived in, but the way it's described, he was essentially an alcoholic, which makes sense because, again, he was sex trafficked for who knows how many years in the brothel, being repeatedly sexually assaulted, and then was bought by a pedophile and continued to be groomed and molested. So yeah, during that whole period where he was being molested by Marius, he was drinking heavily. Like, yeah, that makes fucking sense. That tracks. All right? Like, sorry, that tracks. Yeah, some of it was recreational and stuff like that, but some of it was just him being a fucking teenage alcoholic because his life was a horror fucking show up to that point. Like, it just was. So it's interesting that, and of course, the alcoholism ended when he became a vampire, but did it? Did it carry in? Did it carry through? Is Armand still a little bit have a tinge of an addictive personality? Even as a vampire? And then, of course, he was immediately kidnapped and pulled into a religious satanic cult that valued abstinence, valued valued repression, valued rejecting desire and want. So he would not have, he would be, if he carries his alcoholism or his addictive tendencies into vampirism for eternity, then that means that not only was he feeling addiction through that, but also was then tortured into a cult that prevented him from dealing with that addiction. Or interesting. I don't know. That feels like a tangent, but I do think it's interesting that he was an alcoholic when he was a teenager in the books and possibly in the show as well. And what that means for him now attending AA meetings and what that means for his ability to relate to Alex as part of his plan. Is he going to draw back on his memories of being a teenage alcoholic? Is he going to actually share in these meetings? Because now he's using the name Arun, which is the name he had when he was in the brothel. But it's interesting because it's also not the name that he's chosen to be his permanent name. Armand is the name that he chose to be his permanent because he has never changed his name even after he left the cult. The cult, at least in the books, Alessandra, who I hope they keep in the show, please keep Alessandra. Alessandra is the one who named him in the books, right? His den mother, his holy mother, his satanic mother, whatever you want to call it, his cult mom. She's the one who gave him the name Armand, and it's very interesting, at least for me, very interesting that in the books he does not change his name from Armand. He decides to keep the name that Alessandra gave him because, of course, in the books, Alessandra was with him for 300 years while he was being a cult leader. So she is his longest running parental figure. The longest running parental figure in Armand's life is not Marius, it's not Santino. Marius was only with him for a few years and then he abandoned him for like 500 years. Santino was only with him for like less than a year while he was, indoctrinating him. And then he sent him off to Paris with Alessandra. Alessandra is Armand's longest running parental figure, which is why it was so, why it impacted him so much when she jumped into a fire in front of him and he presumed that she was dead. Of course, we know that she wasn't dead, that she survived later on, but that's in books that after I stopped reading. So I don't know what she gets up to when she comes back, but I do know that she did not die and that she does come back, and is part of their lives again. But she was his longest running mother in the books. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, she's the one who gave him his name. So it was interesting for him to go back to, like, obviously he can't use the name Armand because everybody knows the book now. So if he uses Armand here, he's a South Asian man. I don't know if he's Indian, but he's a South. Well, I guess we don't know if he's from Delhi actually. We just know that that was his first memory. So, but he's a South Asian man with the name Armand. And there's right now one of the most famous books in North America. It features a South Asian man with the name Armand, which usually probably wouldn't matter, but because he's meeting with Alex, who's from Lestat's band, well, Alex should probably recognize that name. Unless he doesn't read the books. We know that Salamander reads the books, but we don't actually know if anybody else in the band reads the books. Actually, no, he definitely doesn't read the books because he would know the name Arun as well. So he probably would at least get a little bit of an inkling that this is the guy from the book, especially because he knows now that the characters in the book are not characters, they're real people. So he would be more suspicious. So he definitely didn't read the book. I don't know what Armand's endgame is though, but him choosing Arun is interesting. I wonder if he chose it because it's the name that actually holds the least amount of memories for him. Like, it's a traumatic moment. Like, he used that name in a very traumatic period of his life, but it's also a period of his life where the trauma was so intense that he does not have his full memory of that time, right? Like, he only has fragments of the time where he was Arun, some fragments of the really horrifying trauma he had being trafficked on the boat, etc., like that. And then some fragments of memories of being in the brothel and the abuses that he suffered there, but he doesn't have his full memory there. So maybe using Arun actually helps him create distance, where using Amadeo would not create distance at all because he has all of his memories for his Amadeo period, which in the show has lasted longer. It's like 13 years or something like that. He was Amadeo. A lot longer than he was in the book. Curious. But yeah, I guess we'll unpack that next episode, so we'll see. We are 3 hours and 12 minutes in, baby, and I haven't even gotten to Louis, which I do want to talk about, or Daniel, or Gabby. So let's talk about Louis. I think Louis' storyline is the one that has given me the most conflicting feelings. I understand Louis' emotions here, and I like to let's talk about the stuff that I did really like. I think it's interesting that we saw that he and Lemuel, or he told Lemuel where he was going, and that was a really cute scene of Lemuel calling and checking in on him. But I think he was lying about the idea that he got what he needed from that. And we can talk about that in a second. But he also now has the cloud gift, which he didn't have when he was in Dubai during the interview. So since 3 years ago, in the last 3 years, he has finally achieved the ability to use the cloud gift, which I think is nice. So after his breakup with Armand, he's been focusing on himself. We know that he's been trying to be his own companion. And part of that has been, I think symbolized here in that he has finally achieved this ability to float and to fly. I guess we don't know if he can full on fly, but we know he can at least float. And I'm sure he can fly. And he did that all on his own with seemingly no teacher. I mean, obviously he has the tutelage that he's been getting for quite a while on just general vampiric abilities, and he understands from the description from, I'm sure, Lestat and perhaps Armand about the cloud gift. But actually learning it and practicing it and doing it, that's all on him, and I want to give him his props for that, because that's cool. And it was like a cool sequence of him, going in here and killing everybody in the house and everything. Very much echoed the murder house from season 2, in terms of like the filming and the comedy music and stuff like that. But I want to talk about the meat of it, which is, of course, the Bruce of it all. I have such conflicting feelings for it. Like, the scenes were effective, and reading her diaries over audio while we're seeing Lestat face and confront his truth about his assault, very much drawing parallels between them, but I don't know how I feel about that. Like, why are we using Claudia in this way to bolster Lestat's story? Like, I knew this the moment that they had Lestat say, oh, he kept me for a week, and then in season 2, they had Claudia say, he kept me for a week. I knew immediately that they were going to draw parallels between the two of them. And it also made me feel like, okay, did we write in Claudia's assault that did not exist in the books at all? And his connection with Killer and everything like that at all? Did we do that purely just so that we could have this parallel later on between Claudia and Lestat? Because I don't like that, actually, a lot. I'm actually super upset about it. It's a little icky. I don't think that we should, because it again makes her sexual assault not really about her or her development. It makes it a little bit more about the men in her life. And this episode like doubled down on that with Louis as well. I don't know. I know that the purpose of the scenes were emotionally resonant and thematically resonant. I think that they worked in that level, but I don't like it because of the way that it makes me feel about the way the show is approaching Claudia's character and her autonomy. But I also can recognize that that is the point, that the show has repeatedly shown us over the last 3 seasons Claudia being stripped of her power, her agency, and her autonomy in the story, in the narrative, within the story, and outside of the story, over and over and over and over and over again, right? Like, she has been absolutely stripped of her autonomy by every man in her life. Every single one. From Lestat to Louis to Armand, even Daniel to a bit, and now to the world at large, like, and of course to Bruce. And I know that's the point, but I don't know if I like it. Does that make sense? Give me a second. I don't know if I like it. But let's talk about Louis. The choice to have Louis do this makes sense for Louis. It holds up thematically for his character and for his arc to do this. I don't think that it's out of character for him to try and white knight Claudia. They literally had a scene in the first season right after Bruce assaulted her and she came back home and was help nursing him after Lestat abused him, utterly destroyed him in the fall, in the drop. They had Louis trying to talk to Claudia about her assault and basically offer to essentially try to find him. And she was like, what are you going to be, my knight in shining armor? And he goes, I am the knight girl, or something like that. And this is what he's trying to do. He's trying to white knight her, but at the same time, it's a little late. It's too little too late. This does nothing. And I know that's the point of it. The point of it is so that it's supposed to feel a bit empty and useless. This does nothing. It does nothing to change what happened to her. It does nothing to change how she died. It does nothing. She has no idea this is happening. It's doing nothing for her. It's only doing things for you, Louis. And it feels empty because it is empty. It's not even doing anything for Bruce because Bruce doesn't fucking care. Like, he's a piece of shit. He genuinely does not care. He hasn't been spending this whole time, locked in agony or guilt or feelings of conflict or anything like that about it. Like, other characters might be feeling conflicted about certain things that they did to Claudia, but Bruce is not. Of all the people in the show, the person who has the least conflicted feelings about what happened with Claudia is Bruce. So this is doing nothing. It's not going to make him feel guilty. It actually, I don't even think it's making, like, in the pages of her diary that he reads out, I don't even think it's necessarily making him feel small. Like, he spent that whole time being really, like, gross and defiant and about everything and mocking and just, I don't think he felt any kind of fear until he was burning. And by that point, it's like, whatever, So it feels like it's just for Louis. Which, I would have wished, if we're going to have a story of getting revenge against Bruce, I would have wished that it was Claudia. Claudia herself doing it, 1 second. This is about to be a 4-hour fucking video, y'all. Y'all just gonna have to live with this. I'm sorry. Because I'm talking and I've got a lot to say. This episode actually made me want to have a lot to say. It was actually really chock full of interesting stuff. So, like I said, this episode, I think, had a lot that worked for it, and then some stuff that did not work for it very blatantly. But anyway, how do I feel about Louis reading her diaries to her rapist? I don't like it. I actually think that I hate that aspect of it so much. I think it makes sense, again, thematically, for Louis to disrespect her memory like this and go against her orders and her desires and her autonomy and her will. Not only did she not want him to be white knighting her in the first place, she did not want to go after Bruce and do some kind of revenge killing, blah, 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 blah. She almost explicitly said, we're not doing that. I don't want to do that. I just want to move and leave it behind. And he's not respecting that at all because, of course, he feels powerless in that he wasn't able to save her from dying and is trying to somehow make up for that, or even though it's not really his fault that she was killed, but he feels like it was, even though he had like all these events happened because of choices that everybody made. But at the end of the day, the people responsible were the coven Armand and the other Coven members who put on this play that kills her, right? At the end of the day, they are the ones responsible. But it doesn't change how you feel. Those are the facts. And let's not forget that in this season, facts are irrelevant. Feels are everything. How Louis feels is this. But he's letting his feelings override Claudia's desire or will about this whole situation. Which I guess, you know, is par for the course. We don't talk about it enough, but all of the people in this show and outside of it, I'm guilty of this myself as well. All of us constantly are disrespecting Claudia's wishes because, number one, she did not wish to be considered their child or referred to that way. And I know damn well that sometimes I call her their daughter, you know, and everything like that. And I'm disrespecting her will and desire with that too. And I know damn well that Louis has never stopped thinking of her as his daughter. Even when he was calling her sis, he was doing that performatively because she asked for it and he was trying to not upset her. But ultimately, he didn't really believe it or feel it. He's always thought of her as his daughter. And the moment that she died, he reverted back to calling her daughter regardless. Like, not respecting her wishes there either. And like I said, I'm guilty of this too as an audience member. I think all the audience members are still guilty of this, that we keep calling Claudia the Louis and Lestat's daughter when she very explicitly said that she didn't want that. But I think the most egregious thing are the diaries. The diaries are she absolutely never wanted anyone to ever touch or read those diaries. She allowed exactly one person to read her diaries with her consent, and that was Madeline. That's the only person she has ever given these diaries to with the intention of having them read them. Everybody else has violated her privacy. Lestat did it first. Then Louis, right after, also did it in the same episode back in season 1. And everybody who has touched her diary and read them herself, read the pages themselves, all of the Coven, Armand, Daniel, and then the pages were put into the book, and then Daniel published the book. So now all of the world who have read this book, millions of copies. He sold millions of copies in 4 months. It's now been like 2 years. This is a bestseller. All of these people are now reading passages of her diary and are privy to her most private thoughts that she absolutely did not. Like, the complete disrespect and violation of Claudia's autonomy through this book is actually the most tragic thing for me, in my opinion. Like, the way that she has been pulped and pressed into the pages of this book and spread all over the world, and then we're gonna take the pages that weren't even in the book, but that you yourself cut out because you didn't want anybody to ever read those. You cut them out of her diary, which is also a bit of a violation, by the way, and you then take those pages and you read them to her rapist, the person who made her write these passages in the first place. That's wild. It's in character for Louis, but it's so horrible. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how I feel about it. It feels really exploitative, and I can't figure out if it feels exploitative for a purpose that I'm going to feel satisfied by the end of the season. And I'm struggling with that. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm struggling a bit with that. I don't know. It's just really upsetting. Yeah. And now we have this woman, Regina, her doppelganger, that Louis is going to, again, form some kind of empty attachment to in an attempt to salve his own feelings of guilt in how he himself has disrespected Claudia and abused Claudia, because he has abused Claudia himself. It's all been rolling downhill, to be honest. And so he's going to find her doppelganger and use her as a proxy to try and get some kind of false sense of forgiveness to ease his own guilt. Oh God, no, it's not going to work. It's also a bit disrespectful to Claudia's memory to do this. Maybe you should just live with your guilt, sir. I know it's hard, but sometimes you can't get forgiveness for the shit that you've done. You just have to live with it and change your behavior. And that's it. That's sometimes just it. You know? It is. But he's not there yet. So he's going to try to do whatever he's going to do with Regina. We don't even know if Regina actually looks like Claudia or if that's Louis just seeing things. We need to, I guess that's why in the trailer we have that scene of Louis asking Lestat to go into the diner and check, because he's trying to figure out if it's his schizophrenia or if it actually is a doppelganger of Claudia. But either way, I think it's not going to end well for Regina. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think that this woman is going to have a good time about this. Yeah, what a mess. All right, we're 3.5 hours in. This is going to be a 4-hour show. Let's talk about this. Let's move on. Let's talk about Daniel. We don't have too much of Daniel, so I think this is going to be pretty short. We just have him wrestling with his maker fledgling bond. He's feeling listless and empty because he needs answers, and the only person who can provide those answers is Armand, who right now is in Ohio. While they are not in Ohio, they're somewhere in Canada. I can't remember where they are in Canada, but either way, whatever. He's struggling quite a bit, and he's trying to fill it with all this stuff that doesn't matter. The bowling, the rock star roadie life, the documentary itself. We also have him trying to recreate the feelings that he had when he took down Armand at the end of season 2. Because let's be honest, that whole everything was less about Daniel trying to find the truth for some kind of pure reason, and it was all about him just trying to defeat Armand and expose Armand and expose Louis and destroy their marriage, yada yada yada. He's a bit of a sadist when it comes to that. When his journalism is very self-centered and a bit sadistic. Sadistic in the sense that his goal is to, you have two options, right? Like, your goal can be, I want to find out the truth because I think the truth should be out there, which is what he says in all of his masterclasses, versus what I think actually is happening with Daniel, which is he wants to find the truth because finding the truth, uncovering the truth gives him power and agency where he felt like he didn't have it in his earlier life, because I'm pretty sure in his earlier life he did not have a great time with his childhood. I think that he finds joy in seeing powerful people be dismantled by him through his words or through his journalism, which is why you have this scene of him and Lestat and him like chomping at the bit at the idea of Lestat being exposed and being torn down, the brat prince being torn down and broken and yada yada yada. I've always maintained, I don't know if I've said this on screen, but I've always maintained that scene in season 2 episode 1 where Armand is laying in bed with Louis and he's telling Louis, hey, you should end this interview because he has control of this interview now. And what did he say? He wants you in pieces or something like that. He wants you in pieces so he can put you back together, something like that. And then he says it's his drug, right? I know a lot of people interpret that as projection, and I don't disagree with that assessment. I do think that Armand was projecting there, but I also don't disagree with his assessment of Dan. He was 100% correct about Daniel. That actually what gets Daniel going is tearing people down using the truth in order to get at the kernel of them and then allow them to build themselves up in the way that he thinks that they should build. Or maybe he doesn't even think about the building up part. He just likes to destroy them and get at the truth and feel empowered or feel like he is he is the one who uncovered this truth. You know, it's about that feeling of euphoria that he gets. It's the only way that he can have power over people is by doing this. And usually his targets are people who need to be brought down. Like, we have the titles of his books and the subject matters of his books, and most of the times they are actually, you know, hey, people who probably deserve to get torn down. But he sometimes uses it in his interpersonal relationships, which is why you end up with him alienating everybody around him, including his ex-wives and his daughters, including the way that he conducted himself with Louis. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Armand is his victim or anything like that. Absolutely not. But he also uses it in his relationship with Armand, right? Like, and he's trying to use it with Lestat. Lestat, however, is a different animal. Armand and Louis wanted to get at the truth too, so he allowed those tactics. Armand, if we all, which we kind of all do, really believe that past DM is real and that Armand is actually probably already in love with him, or close to in love with him, as in love with him as Armand can be, given the givens, in the way that he can, as much as he can, in the way that he can. That's the thing I always say in my reactions when I talk about how people relate to ideas of love when they are a character who is divorced from an understanding of objective love versus subjective love, the emotion of love versus the action of love, and how it actually takes true love, actually unconditional love actually needs both of those things combined. Right? It needs love the emotion and love the action word. And those two things combined actually is when you start to get into the ability to feel and to enact true love, right? I think that Armand feels love towards Daniel in the way that he can, as much as he can, at least at this point in his life, right? So, with that in mind, though, he had incentive to not harm Daniel, or not to. Daniel had a weakness. He had a weakness that Daniel could exploit in a way that he does not have with Lestat. So Lestat is able to trick him and use the whole telepathy thing to trick him, make him think he's broken him, but actually he hasn't. And then later on in the car, have his own breakdown alone, and not as an exploitation of Daniel's, which unfortunately Claudia was not afforded that. She has no agency in this show, by the way, because she's already dead by the time the show starts. So she has no agency in anything that happens that we see. Anyway, but Lestat does have agency, and he's able to stop Daniel from exploiting his story about Nikki, and his story about his maker. So Daniel is frustrated by that and is feeling, because he keeps trying to fill the void that he feels that he doesn't know how to fill with all of this stuff that doesn't matter. He slipped back into drug use by drinking people who are using drugs, just like Louis used to do in San Fran in the 70s. Like, he's slipping back into his old habits. He's trying to fill it with everything except for self-reflection, which is what he needs. And I think he also needs to level set with Armand. Regardless of everything, he needs to face Armand. I mean, to be fair, Armand has been running from him and hiding in the shadows and stuff, so hard for him to do that when Armand is not the easiest person to pin down. So we'll see how it goes, but I get it. This is a long ass motherfucking video. Y'all, this is almost 4 hours. I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm going to do for YouTube, but I'm going to have to split this up. I can't put this all in one video. Y'all just going to have to get this all split up. This is going to be like a part 1, part 2, part 3, because it's crazy. I can't put a 4-hour video up on YouTube. But I do like the Daniel stuff because it shows us how much he's just a bad person. He's just a piece of shit. Like, we have been kind of exposed to that. Like, we've known from the beginning that he's a piece of shit. And I've talked about it earlier in last episode that he's trash. And he's kind of always been trash. But this episode, he truly was acting real trash with Lestat and his drama. Obviously Lestat also has his, personality traits that are trash too. So it was like trash for trash. We were watching trash for trash on our screen today. Goodness. Okay, Gabby. I want to talk about Gabby last. I saved Gabby last because I don't know what the fuck they are doing with Gabby, but almost every single choice that they are making with Gabby, I hate. I don't like it. I think this is the biggest miss of the show, which I'm sad to say that because I've actually enjoyed almost, I don't want to say all, because I just talked about had an extended talk about how much I like and dislike about what they're doing with Claudia. But for the most part, though, I've genuinely enjoyed this show and the choices that it's making creatively. Gabby is like unequivocally the worst choices they have been making. They have absolutely, I don't want to talk in absolutes because the season isn't over. I don't want to talk in absolutes, and I want to give the show grace to show me the whole season and for me to make my judgment. But as of episode 3, it's not working. I'm not liking how she's being used in the narrative. I'm not liking the portrayal. I'm so sorry, Jennifer Girl, but I'm not enjoying the portrayal at all, actually. Except for out of a few moments. I actually think I liked Gabby more in last episode than in this one. For all its faults, I actually do think that last episode, I mean, to be fair, the stuff that I liked the most was the stuff that was pulled directly from the books. I don't want to say liked it, but you know what I mean. Like, I think it was the most successful, was the stuff that I felt was pulled directly from the books in terms of her characterization and the scene with Lestat right after he kills the wolves and everything like that. This episode, I don't know what the fuck they were doing with her and Yarda, but that didn't work. They need to cut that out. I don't even really love the stuff that they did in the past. The only stuff that felt really authentically Gabby was the stuff in the theater box in the balcony when we had the Gabbymon, petty garbage back and forth between them. That felt the most authentically Gabby. I didn't even like the stuff with, I don't know. I don't want to say I dislike the stuff with her and Nikki. I think it's a strange choice to remove Gabby's affection for Nikki and instead make it malicious in the show. Because again, it feels like it's flattening her character. Doesn't it feel like it's flattening her character? In the books, she's not a good person. She's not a good person. We know that. But her reasons for not being a good person are understandable and track for me. Like, I get it. I get how her character came to the conclusions that she came to and why her behavior is the way it is in the book. It's not even about her coldness or her distance or her emotional, cruelty, because all of those things are still true in the book. But I think there's also, moments of grace with her character in the book that I don't see in the show. And that's what's bothering me, is that I don't feel like we're having, like I said last episode, I don't think we're having moments of humanity with her. I think about season 2. Season 2 is a perfect season to talk about. I actually really like season 2. And the more I rewatch the show, season 2 it ends up being my favorite season because I think it was really built well upon the first season and expanding the narrative to these other characters in Paris. But I want to maintain that I think that season 2 did a great job in exploring its villains, its antagonists. I don't want to say villains, its antagonists. In Armand, first and foremost, and in Santiago next, as well as some of the other members of the Coven. I feel like the members of the Coven still feel like they have more interiority than Gabby. Of all people, Gabby should have interiority. I should be able to experience Gabby on my page and feel like she's a full person. Even if she's doing evil shit, I should feel like she's a full person and not just a person suit full of tropes. Right now, she feels like a person suit full of tropes. You know, she feels like a bag full of, caricatures, all, jumbled up into one, rather than actually a person, a character with true internality. And I think that's a problem. Why in the world do I understand Estelle and feel like Estelle and Celeste and even Gustav feels like a more real than Gabby? That's not good. Why do I understand Santiago and his I don't want to say tragedy, but the emotions of his character and his internal world way better than Gabby? That's crazy. That's crazy. Like, we found moments of grace and understanding with all of these characters all throughout season 2. Even if it was just little moments of like, hey, this goofy love triangle between Estelle, Celeste, and Santiago, where clearly it's been running for over and over and over, and there's just been this like really tangled romantic web between them. And Estelle is like really upset, like genuinely upset about losing Santiago to Celeste, and is struggling all throughout the season with feeling like second best to Celeste. That was a through line for her character. Like, that was genuinely a through line for her character, and it actually impacted how she made her choices in the Coven when it came to choosing sides for Santiago versus for Armand. Did you guys notice that she had this like little mini arc? Like, fucking Estelle had this little mini arc. Oh, not Estelle. Egli. Why did I say Estelle? Sorry. Egli had this little mini arc of who is she going to choose between Santiago and Armand in that arc. Egli. It's not even Estelle. Estelle actually was a different character who had even a more of an arc, right? Like, there was like actual things that were happening with those characters that felt real. Even the guy, I don't even know that guy's name, but he had like an arc about, like, all the characters in the Coven had an arc about who they're gonna choose, who are they gonna back, Armand or Santiago. You know, I'm not even going to get into the incredible work they did with Armand's character in season 2, and how they found a lot of grace with his character and a lot of like genuine emotions with his character, even though he was doing the absolute worst garbage shit to Louis and Claudia. Absolute fucking terror, right? In season 2. But they also found a way to find grace with his character. Like, it's a given, of course, because Armand is one of the main characters. Is like the third main character in all the Vampire Chronicles. Of course, we're going to spend time with his internality. But we spent time with the other characters in the troupe. And I don't feel like we are giving the same amount of complexity to Gabby. And that's a problem. It's a problem for me to not feel like Gabby is as strong a character as Santiago or even some of these other members in the troupe. And I'm not even going to get into season 1 where everybody felt so real. Like, so real and really well realized on the page and on the screen. Like, Gabby can't even touch those characters in terms of characterization. I don't know what they are doing with her, but I need them to pivot hard in the back half of this season. They need to do something. And they're trying to do this whole they're trying to do this whole thing with her relationship to the Great Conversion. But the problem is that we don't care about the Great Conversion. It's just this thing that's happening in the background that's obviously going to lead into some build up to Akasha. But we don't even know, like if I'm watching this and I don't know anything about the books, I don't even know who the fuck Akasha is. If I've not watched the Queen of the Damned movie and I don't know anything about pop culture in black or vampire pop culture, you know, I don't know who the fuck Akasha is. So it's meaningless. It's empty. That's empty shit. All of these hints are just empty shit. Oh, the Great Conversion. Who cares? Genuinely. Who cares about this vampire apocalypse? Really. So tying Gabby's motivation to that while also not giving us any genuine forward movement about that actually feels tangible. And it doesn't... Having her have a motivation connected to the Great Conversion doesn't work for me, because why should she care? Why does she care about this? Because I don't understand her character, I don't even know why she would care about vampires taking over the world. Why does Gabby care about this? What in her life makes her want to take over the world? Or support taking over the world? Or be part of that in any way? What motivation does she have for that? And they are not telling me. I don't care about it. So, like, I'm struggling so bad, you guys. And I need them to pivot so bad. Her character is the biggest miss of this show so far. Of all the swings that they have taken, she is the biggest miss. And I don't know if her character is salvageable. She's almost completely unlikable. Like, I actually don't think she's likable at all. But, like, regardless of everything, I think that there were things about Gabby in the books that were a bit likable. Like, she was a bit likable. She was also interesting. She was aloof in a different way. Like, she was aloof in a feeling, but she also... Like, the way that she embraced monstrosity was really interesting and evocative in the book. Whereas I don't like the way that she's embracing monstrosity in the show. I don't like how they're rendering it. It's just not working for me. So, I don't want to belabor it. I don't want to belabor it. But I just want to say it's not working. I'm almost at 4 hours of filming, so I'm going to wrap it up here. But I don't know. This feels like a mid-season review, which it kind of is at this point. Because it's such a long conversation that I'm having. But yeah, I just felt like I just needed to talk about it. So yeah. Anyway, we'll see how the rest of the season goes, and how they unlock certain things and how they unpack certain things. But yeah, that's how I feel. All right, we're 4 hours into this fucking recording, you guys. So we're gonna wrap it up. God, I'm sorry, you guys. This is a crazy video you guys are about to get. All right. Let's wrap it up. I'm looking forward to next week and next episode. Like I said, the stuff that really worked in this episode really worked. Even though overall, I think I still like the first episode better as a complete package. I do think that the scenes in this that worked really worked. Way more than anything that happened in the first and second episode. But the stuff that really didn't work really brought it down for me. So, but overall, did like this episode, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. So, all right, let me know if you made it through to 4 hours into this video. Let me know down below. Let me know if you made it through to 4 hours into this fucking video, brother. Because, oh my God. But tell me what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Go on over to Patreon if you're interested in watching this full thing all put together with the reaction. Because I'm definitely going to have to split the reaction off of this. Because this commentary was insane. I'm sorry, you guys. I was just fucking talking. This should be a podcast at this point. But anyway... let me know what you guys think, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Baby, it's whatever. All this ever, but you long gone, it don't matter.